and ever-changing views, and computer terminology, Commodore reviews. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you.
Hello, and welcome to episode 82 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, then this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week, we looked at our second batch of games from issue 35 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and were querulous at a question of scruples, bombarded in the Battle Valley, and mugged off by Masters of the Universe, the movie. This week, we continue our look at the games in March 1988, along with what was lighting up our TV screens in the UK that month. So, Graham, tell us what we have going on in this episode.
In this highly elaborate and confusing wedding fair showcasing the latest crazes of giant illuminated wooden alphabet characters, multicoloured popcorn, confectionery, and pulled pork sandwich hand wagons you can hire, hand-glittered tree trunk slices for table decorations, and glitter beards you can wear in a selfie booth of an episode. We grab our M16s, adorn ourselves with bullet belts, and head into the jungle on a Rambo-style rescue mission in the shooty Ikari Warriors, make our depth 600 metres, and then slowly wait for anything to happen in the dreary underwater nonsense of Sub-Battle Simulator, head to the 8-bit Crazy Golf for some fun and to test the dexterity and aim of our balls in Mini-Putt, and then head to the proper golf course armed with a full set of clubs, jerky movement, and a power system so confusing even Arnold Palmer would need the old Billy Baroo in World Tour Golf. If that glitzy bunch of happiness isn't enough to keep your wedding reception pumping, and you think Bongo the Magician and DJ Blinky might add some much-needed magic to proceedings, we also dive in another submarine game, this time blatantly trying to steal a really fancy one, in the interesting and first version of The Hunt for Red October. We take a bunch of fancy supercars for a bitty spin around Brown Mountain, while avoiding traffic made of Lego in the crashy test drive, bury our head in our hands and scream at the utter user interface stupidity presented in the annoying Slaine, or Slaine, or whatever it was called, before finally taking Questor, Thor, Thyra and Merlin on yet another adventure into yet another 100 dungeon levels of stuff, this time at a slower, ploddier and more boring pace in Gauntlet 2. I am trying real hard to like some of these games now. This is like when a dentist cleans your teeth with his electro spiker. Sure, they feel mega clean afterwards, but you still want to punch the dentist in the face.
Sweet. Sweet,
Yes.
sweet
Tasty
nectar to my
treats.
ears.
Tasty treats.
There are some tasty treats in there, but like a bag of Revels, there are also the coffee ones.
Yeah, you can't use... I said that 2 weeks ago in my intro. You can't just nick my intro bits. Yes, I bloody well did, you intro ripper.
I don't listen. I only check the QA. Sorry.
Why don't you just press M1000 and just rip out my assembly code?
Okay, it's like a bag of Haribo, and you might get the lips, but they're nice. There's some crap games coming up. And that's all.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That's all I can say. Anyway, yes. But before we get into those games, we normally mention this at the end, but I'm just going to mention it here. We have a Patreon. If you wish to sign up for that and you wish to help out the podcast, that would be cool. There are 2 tiers.
That would be cool.
You can find that at patreon.com/zapped to the past. And there are 2 tiers. One is for £1 and one which helps us out, and the other one is £4.50, or your currency equivalent, which is probably 4.5 of whatever you're using because of the the tanking of the pound that's going on at the moment.
Well, there's no extremes we won't go to get you the best value for Zapped to the Past.
Absolutely, yeah. We the trust bot has been well programmed. The trust bot and the Kwarteng 101.
Exactly. Just don't buy into Quatloos at the moment because they're not what they used to be.
They're not. Yeah, so that gets you access to the Discord. There's early access to the ad-free episodes, any other stuff we might want to throw out and things like that. And it's all good, and it helps us out, obviously. So if you wish to do that, it's patreon.com/zapped to the past. That's cool. And there you go. That's our shilling over with, I think. Should we get into some games?
I think we best add.
So let's get in some games then. Yeah, we've been talking for ages. All right. I just want to say, by the way, I noticed when I was QAing last week's episode, and I know you finished it on now, so it's all right. So I'm just going to put it here because it's too late to put everything in there. The Mission's first album was God's Own Medicine. I kept saying it was Wasteland. That was a single off it.
Oh no, and I just bought a boat.
And I'm 3 days to retirement.
I don't think anyone would worry about that.
I worried when I listened to it. I went, because I didn't just say it once. I said it twice. Not thrice, but twice. And it bugged me.
You know, if we went back and listened to some of the little corrections we have to make, it's quite a few.
I know.
I would listen to them and I go, it's too much effort.
Well, that wasn't too much effort. It was just there anyway. So if you've been sat there going, call yourself a goth, I'm like, well, I don't, not anymore. But
were you ever actually a full goth? You was only partial.
I was like a goth. I was like a goth-loo.
You was
I was part goth, part rock goth, goth rocku in the monster squad, in the monster squad nomenclature.
Yeah, you'd be like a rogo, I think.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Yeah, I was a
rogo.
I was a part crumbler.
Yes, I think you were by association, as I recall, and obviously you knew a lot of them. That makes sense, really. But you didn't have a tiny hat, so all bets are off.
True, I didn't. Sorry. I did have a tiny hat. I didn't.
No, you didn't. You never wore a tiny hat, as far as I remember.
No, I'd need a big hat to cover that hair.
There's a lot of hair in there.
There was a lot of hair. Anyway, let's get into some games. Let's get into some games. And Graham, you've got the first one. You're going to yomp. This is the game that yomps.
I read that as well. I'm like, look, you can't just make up a word and then just use it a lot.
To be fair, no, right? I think yomps is a military word. It's to yomp over hill and down dale, yomp. Anyway, it's Ikari Warriors. Tell us about Ikari Warriors, Graham.
Okay, this is from Elite. It's an arcade conversion. It was coded by John Twiddy. John Twiddy's a good old coder, isn't he? Graphics by Paul Walker, not the dead guy from the Fast and Furious movies, I don't think. Rory Green, Karen Truman from the Karen Truman Show. She's still in there. And John Harrison did the graphics. The title screen was Paul Walker as well. And the musician here is Jason C. Brook and Mark Cooksey. I don't know who did what. I don't know that, whether they shared it. I don't know. That's who did it. That's just what's listed. So, for the uninitiated, and for those of us that spent a long time thinking that Ikari was a demo group before it was a game, that's probably me. Ikari Warriors is also known as Ikari Fury in Japan. Apparently, this is a little bit of extra information. It is a vertically scrolling run-and-gun shooter arcade game developed and released by SNK in 1986 and released in North America by Trade West. I didn't research too heavily for this. This is straight off the Wikipedia for this game. The game was released at the time when there were many Commando clones on the market. Now, I'm not so sure about that. Many Commando clones? I can think of one Commando. Maybe there's more than one. I don't know.
It was the genre of 1,000 games.
What distinguished Ikari Warriors from the name Ikari Warriors and it being the only other game I ever played that was like this in the arcade, were rotary joysticks and a 2-player mode. The rotary joystick controls were in turn based on SNK's earlier TNK3, whatever that means, and Ikari was originally intended to be an officially licensed adaptation of the film Rambo First Blood Part 2. That is quite interesting. But SNK were initially unable to acquire the rights to the film. What a different game that would have been. Actually, it wouldn't have been, would it? But exactly the same as Ikari Warriors. It would look like Ikari Warriors, except it was called Rambo.
Yeah, you run around with a red headband on.
You do. Anyway, any road up. So the scenario then. General Alexander Bonn, CIF US forces in Central America. So I'm guessing that's the CIF is the military wing.
I don't know.
Obviously the Commander-in-Chief. Commander-in-Chief. Commander-in-Chief.
CIC.
Commander-in flip-flops. I don't know. Has been seized by a band of revolutionaries and held captive in his own headquarters. Before his final capture, he relayed a mayday, which you and your buddy picked up. Your plane crash lands in a dense jungle some distance from the headquarters. You don't have to just crash land planes. You can land them legitimately. You don't have to do it that way. After deciding whether to go it alone or attempt the rescue together, you set off. You are in deep guerrilla territory. And that's guerrilla military, not just a lot of angry apes.
Or the band.
Or the band. On all sides, gather trained marksmen and combateers. Combateers is not a word I've come across before. Anyway, determined to stop you. Yeah, they're combateers. The 3 combateers. It soon becomes apparent that you lack the supplies to win, but win through you must. Ambush enemy tanks and use them yourself. Collect fuel and grenades left by the enemies as they retreat. So that's the game. That's the sort of scenario of the game. It's very much in the Commando Rambo ilk, this. In fact, it is that. And Who Dares Wins too, of course. In our little 64 world, of course, it's, this is there were so many in the arcades. There was so many of these clones. They were everywhere. You just kept falling over them in the arcade. Not another one of these clones. So you can play 1 or 2 player in this. You control the action with your joystick. So you run around a la Commando, shooting at things in all the different directions. You can hold down the fire button to press grenade. But a nice little touch here is there are 2 firing modes here. So you can either just shoot in the direction you're moving, the standard way, the Rambo way, as we like to call that, or you can actually fire in a fixed direction by pressing an appropriate key on the keyboard. It's run stop for joystick port 1, and it was, I think, the equals or up arrow key for port 2. I'm not sure what the equivalents are, because I'm on a modern keyboard, so Lord knows, I just kept pressing them until they did it what I wanted. Nice little touch, though, that you can do that. And so you actually play this 2-player with, on the same side. That is, in of itself, is quite an innovation for this. Quite nice, that. I don't think it's the first arcade game where these 2 players playing for the same team, as it were. I'm not sure in this kind of game. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know how innovative that is. With all the clones of Commando around, who would know? Who would know? There's so many. They're everywhere.
There's books written on it.
Well, someone just left 3 or 4 piled up outside my house the other day. I was like, stop piling up your Commando clones everywhere. Get away from me, you combateers. Anyway, so this is a Commodore 64 version of that arcade game. Now, I have not played the arcade game a lot. It is in the arcade club, I think, in Manchester, and I'm pretty sure in Leeds. But either way, I haven't played it a lot. And that's partly because I never really got on with it that well. And I think that's partly just because of the novelty of the rotatey controllers. And I never really liked Commando in the arcade. It's all right for a quick go now and again, but it's not when you're going to sit there and go, wow, Commando, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is kind of the same deal for me. Not that it's bad. That's just more my kind of, it's not, you'd think it'd be my kind of game, but I get a bit tired of it anyway. So the C64 version comes along. Quite a nice little arcade conversion. Obviously, with the controller being the 360 stick, I suppose, is this sort of what you class as a twin stick shooter then in that way?
It kind of is a one stick, yeah. It sort of is, because you can move in one direction and fire in another. That's a twin stick shooter.
Yes, it is. Sorry about that pregnant pause there. I was listening. Yeah, so that's what I thought. I thought, so this is kind of a one stick, twin stick, which sounds like a porn movie, but it isn't that at all. That's not what it is. Anyway, so in the Commodore 64 version, they've sort of made the twin stick, one stick thing by pressing the keyboard. At least they held true to that, because the easy thing to do would have just been you could either, just try some kind of crappy control system, sidearms, and then try and, implement something that doesn't work sidearms, or at least it does try and have that. And I guess you call it strafing mode, really, isn't it? I suppose when you just guns in one place. Pretty cool. So the C64 version obviously is very much in the Rambo, actually more, I'd say it was more Rambo than Commando, really, I suppose, which is kind of its heritage. Mm-hmm. And it's not a bad old thing, actually, this. Now, it surprised me because I wasn't sure. I never played a lot of this, and I had hardly any memories of the C64 version at all. In fact, I wasn't sure I'd played it very rarely, hardly ever. So I thought, I'll come into this, I thought, actually, this isn't a bad little game. Everything you might want from the arcade of what I saw, because I YouTubed the arcade to have a look, everything that you want from the arcade is here. It has the intro sequence where the plane comes tumbling in. You 2 soldiers sort of appear from the bottom, or you 1 soldier if you play 1 player. You can shoot and throw grenades. There's loads of enemies in this. I mean, there's one thing it ain't short of his body count, and this is like the Rambo movie in that respect. It's like, actually, it's more like Rambo 3. Now that film's body count heavy. So there's loads to shoot at, loads of stupid formations that they do in the jungle though, where they form little shapes and then run at you and all sorts of silly things like that. But it's got all of that, and the backgrounds aren't actually that bad. The graphics here aren't they're not going to set you on fire, with their amazing quality. They're not IO standard here, but they do look like they're the things they're supposed to be, albeit obviously little kind of squat. So a little bit squatter, as they always tend to be in the C64. It's no bad thing. It moves around at a pace. You can run around and shoot in all the different angles. The grenades will throw away fine. This background scroll on for what seems like forever, because I'm not sure if it's endless scrolling, but I was going for ages and ages and ages and ages. So I don't know if that's a bit like Who Dares Wins logic, I think. Mm-hmm. So this is all in one load, remember? So there's clearly a lot of clever stuff going on with the John Twiddy's code here, because the backgrounds are reasonably varied. You've got water things that slow you down, and the little soldiers enemy soldiers go under the water as well and pop up, which is, again, a nice little touch. Mm-hmm. There's buildings to blow up. You can even get in tanks. So periodically you'll come across a tank. You will always hit landmines within 3 seconds of getting in that tank. It's like a rule. But because also there's landmines that pop up at the most inconvenient places ever. Like, right, just as you're about to get into a tank, like, oh no, my bomb. Oh, I've got 1.2 seconds in that tank of joy before I was quickly killed. So yeah, so when the mines do have a tendency to pop up at the most inconvenient moments. Normally, as you get into a tank, you won't last long, but they are there obviously to break up the pattern. So because this isn't a game really. It's probably actually slightly better in 2-player, because you can actually sort of hang back in this game and take out the enemies and flank them a little bit and work as a team. And I think it's designed around a little bit more of that logic. So it's less affordance for 1 player, probably slightly more for 2-player. That's no bad thing. It's a good thing. I think it just lends itself to being a bit more fun that way. The scenery can be blown up, but it does seem to go on and forever. Hours going on. And when you get in the tanks, you can run over people and you shoot bigger bombs, obviously, but they will lob grenades. And it's following in the Commando. It's actually, by control and by the player, it's a bit more like Commando from the way you throw grenades. There's a little bit of Rambo in there, but you don't have the weapons. You only got a machine gun and your grenades. But I think it isn't actually that bad. like I said, the backgrounds are kind of functional, but they work in the context of this. The scrolling's all good. The code base is nice. The players move around really well. It's got a nice overall feel. The music's really good all the way through. Really drives the pace. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. And I don't know if it's really a version of the arcade music. I think it is in places, but it all kind of works really well. There's some nice touches in this. It's not a bad conversion of the arcade. So I think the only thing really, it might get a tad repetitive because of the way it's designed, but you could say the same about Who Dares Wins too. I think this is probably the best Commando-y, Rambo-y variant since Who Dares Wins 2, but that's not necessarily saying anything. So all in all, it got a cozy 89%. I think it's about right. It's full price. It's an arcade conversion, so you're going to get that. If you've played the arcade, I think you'll like it. If you haven't, it's a decent Rambo-y, Commando-y type game in here as well. Not bad. 2-player. I wish I'd played it 2-player. I think that'd be a lot of fun, I imagine. And games that come later on that this reminded me of are things like Chaos Engine, which kind of had a little bit of feel about this, and perhaps there's some others as well. There's a lot to like here. Decent start. What about you?
This was ported everywhere as well. There was even a C16 plus 4 version as well. Weirdly, as well, this isn't the first conversion of this. There was one in 1986.
Was that the crappy American one? I did play that.
The
I didn't
Data
want to
East
talk
one,
about
yeah.
it, so it was horrible.
It was awful, wasn't it? Yeah. So that was the Data East one in 86, but it's really bad. Really bad.
Yeah, I saw it. I played it. The two versions you put in the little area that we get them from. I didn't think it was worth mentioning because it was so far from being an Ikari Warriors game. It just seems silly.
It did, yeah.
Terrible thing.
It was awful. But in comparison to this, because like you said, this has pretty much everything from the arcade game, from the the crashing plane at the start. I love the way that the menus bounce on, and sort of there's lots of scrolling. The presentation around this is really good. The way that it scrolls on and you come out of the wings of the plane.
John Twitty.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell that this is the guy who did Last Ninja 2, Tau Ceti. This is a guy who knows how to make the C64 sing. So, and when you give him can you convert this? We're like, yeah, okay. And this is how you do it. So it's incredible. It's fast. Loads of sprites on screen and without barely a flicker.
There's loads.
It's just what it is. It's gone for, like you've said, it's speed and playability over flashiness. And there's some of the chunky character design of the arcade game has been lost, because that's one of the things I always liked about the arcade game. It's nice and sort of chunky. It's got the SNK chunkiness. The speed of the play in this, I like the way it's kept, but it has got when you kill the enemies, they spin away, and they do that in this. Yeah. That's nice. This feels like Ikari Warriors. It's a very solid conversion, and also that because everything's not as chunky, I found there's more room to move on screen with this, so it felt a bit more open than the arcade game, because I think the arcade game is tall and narrow, whereas this is a bit wider, so it feels like there's a bit more room to maneuver a bit, which is good. So there it is. It's not as flashy, but all the bits are there. This is a really solid conversion, and it's an arcade game that I do love to play. It's one of them. It's that music. I love it.
Sounds like Ghosts and Goblins.
No, it's not. It's Ikari Warriors. Trust me. It's still hard though. It's rock hard. No beating about that. And like you said, trying to get into a tank, and she's like, "Tank, mine, dead." Oh.
Yeah, it won't last long in them.
And then the tank blows up. You're like, oh, but it's lovely. It's very smooth. I loved it. Yeah, I thought this was great. I had a great time playing this. I don't think I really actually played this much back then, which is strange. It must have been one of those that was just on the cusp of me not really playing much C64 stuff around this time. Because I think if I'd have got hold of this on this machine, I would have been all over. I'd have been playing this loads.
I never remember seeing it anywhere, though. I really don't.
I remember seeing the adverts, and I kind of remember it being converted, but I don't remember
seeing the game in a shop anywhere or anything.
No, and I don't remember sort of either like you or in the ways you were getting in and stuff, and Gary sort of thing where most of the stuff was coming through. Don't really remember it turning up, because I'd have had this in a heartbeat. But no, glad I got to play this, because I thought it was really good. Really good. Loved it. So it was excellent. I'd have given this a sizzler all day long. Yeah. But that's just me. That's because that's how I Ikari roll.
Very good.
Yeah, there we go. Ikari Warriors. Good one to start with. I'm sure the episode will continue in such a high fashion.
Be nice.
Would be nice. Let's move on to our next one. Next up is Sub Battle Simulator. And before you say it, no, it's not from Codemasters.
I know.
I wish it was. Part of me wishes it was. It's from Epix. This is from Epix, Graham.
I know.
And it got 24%. So let's see if it's... Zap have been known to be wrong in the past. And a lot of it's got good reviews elsewhere, so maybe they're wrong here. All right, so this is Sub Battle Simulator. It's another deep dive into the world of simulations, as Epix's Sub Battle Simulator slides stealthily into our wake. Does it torpedo us with quality, or is it taken down by a depth charge? This was created by Digital Illusions, with programming from Kelly Ferguson, Gordon Halton, Rob Brannan, and Brad Meyer. It's even had playtesters listed on the credits. Johan, Dan, Richard, Tom, and Rob. So, hats off to actually having some people testing the game, although hats down to the fact that they didn't actually listen to them, because they must have told them that this wasn't very good. If you were testing this, you're like, it's not good. It must be good. It has to be good. It's not. Anyway, in this game, your objective is to command a World War II submarine, complete whatever mission you are on, and survive. There are 60 different missions in total. 60, that's quite a lot, with 24 American ones and 36 German ones. According to the instructions, the American missions are very close to historical occurrences, but the German missions are not as exact, since all the records for those were destroyed at the end of the war, so they just made it up, basically. We think this is where these German subs went, but we don't know.
Got to be in the water at least, so you got to be mostly right there.
Well,
80% chance of getting it right.
The missions fall into 4 categories: seek and destroy, rendezvous, lifeguarding, and patrol. And these can take place over 3 modes: target practice against an enemy convoy, single mission in a real combat setting, and wartime command over the course of the entire war. Now, I can't help but feel that there's maybe something in between single mission and the entire war that would have been good to see. It's like, I just want to, something in the middle, like a few missions, like a sortie, like a couple of bits. Not the entire. I don't want to do 1939 to 1945. That's
it's
too
a long
much.
old stretch, isn't it?
That's too much. Anyway, never mind. When starting to read the instructions, it tells you that the controls are in Appendix B of the manual. A quick flick to this and, oh my God. Oh my God. It used just about every key on the keyboard for something or other. And it's all listed in alphabetical order. And I was like, oh God. So I was like, okay, I'll try and get into. We play them so you don't have to. So I dove in and let's see what it is. So the first thing it did me to tell me to do was press Control and N for a new game, which promptly crashed. Just crashed the game. So I was like, okay. So I tried again. And this game doesn't boot quickly. It's a bit of a slow loader. Doesn't use the Epix fast loader. So when the game slowly boots up, you get some siren. So it's weird how this works. It's like the game boots into the game, and then you get a title screen, and then it goes back to the game to let you start a new game, and then just crashes. And it just kept doing that every time. I don't know whether that was I tried another one. I kept getting the same thing. So it's really weird. It's really weird how this is structured. And I was like, what am I doing? So when the bits I could actually play, I was looking at a screen with a lot of dials, and one would move slightly at my joystick presses, but only so it's a dial, and it had a down the bottom left, and it would move slightly up, like a watch stuck, like a stuck watch. It wouldn't really do much. And I tried different joysticks. I tried pressing keys, and then when you press a certain key, it will start loading again and bring up a different screen, because every screen, we saw this in one of their other ones, was it Destroyer? Yeah, it's the same thing. So going to any different part of the sub is a different load. So you've got to, this is loading. This doesn't load particularly fast. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass. Instructions, like I said, they're given in alphabetical order. So you're constantly trying to figure out what to press to enable something. So there's no overlay. It's not like the Microprose one where it says just here's the keyboard and these do what. It's just, and you may think, okay, well, if I'm looking for radar, I can look quickly through, but it's on a really small set of instructions crammed together, and it's hard to sort of find and look through. It ain't good. So then it told me to get into press Control and N, and I did, and it crashed again. And at that point, I just gave up. I tried to go through screens. I tried to move stuff. I tried to fire stuff up. It just wasn't happening. I couldn't get it going. In the small time I had to play this, the pace is glacial. There's no real feedback to anything. Some reviews I saw said it was very buggy and slow, and one actually said it was possibly written in BASIC. Yeah, which made me laugh. I'm not sure that's the case. Maybe it is. I don't know. The viewpoints were pretty dull. Nothing seemed to be happening, and my commands took ages to do anything. When actually trying to do something, they just took ages for any kind of response to come back. I am not, generally not the most tolerant for these kind of games, but when it crashes or locks up or gives no real feedback and looks this dull, the graphics are nothing particularly great. I couldn't even work out what there was. There was a sea. There was dark blue at the bottom in the sort of layout of the screen, light blue at the top, and some black things. Did you know what they were? Were they ships?
No, I imagine probably.
I thought it might be the seagull. I thought maybe a seagull had crapped on the periscope.
Probably.
I don't know. I'm just out. I'm out for this sort of game. It needs to get me in. We'll look at one maybe in the next half sort of thing, which may be something different, but we've got another sub game later on. I don't know. I don't even know if there's much of a game in there, if I'm honest. I mean, Zapped said 24%, the 60 missions, but I couldn't get my head around it or get it to work properly. To say, some people will say probably get a kick out of this, but I just wanted to kick this instead. So I called this a subpar simulator, and that's what I thought of this. What about you? Did you manage to get any further into this?
No, No. And that's partly because I really didn't want to. I loaded it up and it took forever to load, as you've said. I was presented with what was essentially a remix of Destroyer in some ways, but nowhere near as good. Mega slow, like painfully slow. And I get it. Steering a submarine ain't going to be like dusting crops, is it?
No, it's not.
You might bump too close to a supernova and then you're going to be going home real early. Just to quote, misquote Star Wars. I don't know why that's popped in my head. Traveling through the Atlantic, ain't like dusting crops, boy. Anyway, so the long and the short of this entire epic sub-battle was, one, I think this is a panic-stricken release. I think that this has probably been in some kind of development backlog or in slow development, and then they got wind that Microprose were going to be releasing Silent Service at some point, and therefore this was rush released to be the first out there because, of course, it's Epic's. This is the worst Epic's game I think I've ever seen.
Oh, I don't know. There's those other two we looked at, Starfire and Fire One.
Yeah, but they were years ago. So maybe since those then, but we're talking, years ago.
Yeah, they were 1983. Yeah,
shocking. This. So it's really unplayable. I don't know that there's even much mileage for anyone that's into submarines to really like it. I don't know that many people that were.
No.
But no, I quite like some of these naval battle type simulators, and even I found this impenetrable. I mean, we've got some of the instructions that were online, albeit that you had to sort of mega zoom into them because it was like obviously printed on a star map or something. So I was like, oh, I hate that. So it was obviously on some, one piece of paper that was folded into infinity. So when you unfolded it from the case you bought it in, it like folded out to a map the size of a room. And I hate those, I hate that's just cheap. That's, don't make a book. Don't fold pages into a book. And then when I unfold it, it's one big page with lots of things printed on it. I don't like that, which is what this was. So there's loads and loads of stuff to read, but it doesn't have the same depth and it doesn't set the scene properly. It's just kind of like, this is how you play the game. This is how you control the game. It's like, well, what is this game? What is it? It's set in World War II. Why? Why not? If you're going to do a submarine simulator, set it in a modern submarine, like a nuclear submarine or something like that. I know they're top secret and nobody really knows where they are or how they work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, and I also get that from my movie knowledge of submarines, which is extensive, that a large percentage of submarine battles are actually doing nothing because they're just sat waiting and watching. Because in all the movies, they're like, make your deck 6,000 meters. Actually, that's probably way too far. I don't know what I'm talking about, but they just kind of remember. I know the submarines.
Never come out of the submarine, you. That's too deep. I said 6,000 meters, damn it. Crunch. Oh.
Either they're not allowed to make noise. I remember, they drop a fork or something because they're eating their lunch like you do. Or, he's eating a yogurt and he drops his spoon and it's like clank, clank, clank. It's like, oh my God, and the depth charges. They know exactly where you are because they can pinpoint you by the sound of you spoon it in the deck. Or it's that Tarantino written thing, what's it called? Crimson Tide, is it? That's the only where people just shout at each other a lot on submarines. So that's my knowledge. They're either very quiet or they're shouting. Neither of which those things apply to this.
Is that the Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman one you're on about?
That's the one, yeah, where it becomes it's just who can be the angriest.
It's Tony Scott Dutch angle.
Yeah, lots of angles, lots of talking about horses, as I remember, which is odd. Anyway, so, dull. I don't quite know what's happened to Epics. I'm pretty sure submarines are slow and stealthy, but this is taking the mickey, really. How do you go from Destroyer, which was pretty good, to this? Well, I don't know. But it's bland, it's boring, and it's slow, and those are not good things. Goodbye. No. They sunk that battleship, good and proper, that one. They sunk that submarine.
Yeah, they really did. Yeah,
not good.
Like I said, Subpar Simulator.
Correct.
There we go. That's that. There you go. That's Sub Battle Simulator. Would have been better from Codemasters. And that is damning.
Yes.
That really is. Let's move along. We've got some golf games coming up. Let's get into our golf. Let's put on our tartan strides and some spiky shoes and get into them. And you've got the first one, Graham. Mini-Putt.
Yes. Well, when you say two golf games, one of them is golf. This one is not golf. This is Mini-Putt. So this is not golf.
Crazy golf.
Crazy golf. Fun golf. Laughing out loud golf.
Not Mini-Pops.
So it's not often, is it? No, it's not Mini-Pops. That the world of mini golf is given a bit of a game treatment. There's an underrepresented and niche genre. This is brought to you by Accolade. All people, they've got a bit of a presence in this episode. Coded by Martin Edwards and Lisa Mendoza. Graphics, Grant Campbell, Ross O'Connor, and Steve Goodman. And the musician here is Paul Butler. Okay. So I could sort of understand why mini golf's not been given the game treatment, really. I suppose it's not that serious a thing, is it? It's not too... So it's not a serious thing. And I suppose that sort of lends itself to games, really. So on one hand, I'm surprised that this hasn't been done. But on the other hand, I think because they're quite limiting in what they do, maybe this is just not so much fun to be had anyway. This one doesn't take itself too seriously, I guess. It's got fairly simple controls, a la a golf game. And that means you can sort of, with the context of mini golf, you can create sort of, you focus on the other bits, so the funkier hole designs and the way you can sort of bounce the ball about off the walls and things like that. Things you can't do in golf, you can do in mini golf, which is Mini-Putt, which is fine.
Yep.
Now, whenever I think of Mini-Putt, I always think of that crazy movie where Happy Gilmore, where he takes his mate to the Mini-Putt and he goes mad trying to get the ball into that clown. The clown keeps laughing at him and he gets the ball in there. Anyway, so this essentially is a Mini-Putt game. The graphics are okay in the game. The course designs are okay and a bit on the dull side. There's not much to go at, though. The main window is a split into kind of a top-down view of part of the hole, because you don't see the whole thing. You can actually scroll across and move your joystick around to see the wider view. And that actually helps because you can actually move your little target reticule further across and then go for the pinging the ball around and sort of the lucky strike, or you can sort of get the way the course, because obviously these courses are mini courses that bend around corners and have little extra bits on. I'll talk about them in a minute, but they're not a straightforward leaderboard, aim for the thing. Some of the elements are the same, but it's not basically that.
Yeah.
So like I said, so you've got the main window, it's splitted to the top-down view at the top, and then you can see the whole top. The bottom left is you and your control system. The middle is the full view of the whole, as it were. So there's kind of the overview, kind of small map, but a view of everything. But you don't have the detail on that, so you can't see where all the parts that will move the ball around are. I'll talk about that in a minute. The bottom right is the hole number and the current par, and the number of putts, of course, those shots you've taken, and of course your name, if you put your name in. You use the joystick to control your target, or the little crosshairs. So you move that around to... Now, I couldn't figure out if the distance to the thing made a difference or whether you just moved it around and it just was just generally the direction that it fired in. I think it's just used for directional purposes. I don't think the crosshairs is varying distance from you makes a difference. I don't think it did, but
no. What the crosshair does is it tells you how far away it is.
Yeah, because you get a little distance meter, so you can then judge it on the accuracy thing. Yeah. So you press your fire button to start the power and stop it initially. So that then goes up like a little gauge. So it goes up the side, and obviously that's got a little distance meter on it, as we said. So obviously the further away the hole is, then the more further you're going to need to think about it. Then it comes back down again, and then you get your little accuracy meter where you've got it, and it's sort of you've got to try and get the ball in the middle. It's actually quite a nice little control system for a game like this. Not terrible.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to get into and figure out, which is the good thing. And so once you do that, of course, you hit the ball, and that's going to, with actually decent physics, hit off and head towards the hole and bounce around and do all those things that you want it to do. Hopefully go in, probably won't. The holes themselves have areas with small arrows on them. They're all demarked with little areas, and those indicate rises, falls, bumps, and things that will change the speed and direction of and make life difficult for your mini putter to try and get there. So you got to bear that in mind when you're shooting. On the first hole, for example, I was obsessed with trying to get down the middle of the three gaps, but it's probably just as easy to go down the first one.
So was I.
But I wanted it to go down that second one all the time. The main game itself can have up to 4 players, so you can play this with 4 people, and it's Mini-Putt, decent little Mini-Putt game. Your little character that you see in the corner has a range of emotions that he shows, which aren't overly animated, but they are very accurate.
They're expressive, yeah. They work.
So they're expressive and they work in the context of what it is. So, like I said, this is all kind of reasonably well designed. Now, I was expecting this to be because it's quite a lot of loading in this, but it actually loads really quick. So it's not a terribly slow loader. It's quite nippy and fast. And you can practice, I think, on this as well. Although I could be getting that mixed up with the stupid other one. But I think you can practice holes, because I think the first time I tried to practice, it asked me to flip the tape, which threw me completely. So I had to find a different version. But you can choose from there's 4 different Mini-Putt courses. I didn't write down what they were for some reason, but you've probably got that detail. But there's 4 different courses you can go through. They're much of a muchness, actually. I didn't go through all of them. I just tried to get through the first one. I had a fun game of Mini-Putt. It's just all these games are a little bit boring on your own. I imagine with a couple of people, this would be a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
It's a decent enough game. There's nothing to really hate here, actually. The graphics are okay. It's simple enough, but it works. And the main thing is that my rule of thumb with these things is, am I able to play a decent version of the thing they're trying to make? So can I go around? Can I navigate this? Is it easy? Is it easy in? Is the selection screen a pain in the ass? No. Can I get in? Is it going to keep track of my scores? It does all that. And I'm able to play a decent round of Mini-Putt. It's just a bit dull for one player. I like some of the details in this as well. There's some little simple details, but it makes for a good game when you add all those little things up. The little guy in the corner, The fact that it does show you your distance, the fact that you do have, you can move your view around and you can get an overview of what you need to be, and you can strategize with this, so you can try different things out. That's quite nice as well. Because it's a physics game, because it's a little bit wild physics, and by that I mean that you'd never be able to exactly hit the same thing exactly twice. I think not quite. It would always bounce slightly differently. I think it makes for a sort of interesting game. So quite a lot of fun. The things that move well. The physics is good. Once you get used to it and how it works, you'll soon be away with it, no issue. The sound was a bit sparse though. And I think that is the problem in something like this, because it would have just added a little bit of atmosphere to have some laughs or some noise, general noise, other than a few clicks and a few, very, really sort of perfunctory sounds. Just a little bit of atmosphere would have really helped this, just to lift it a little bit from being a bit boring in one player. But I think there's some good mileage in it. I quite liked it. I got on with it quite well. It's not a bad old little multiplayer game, this, I bet, under the hood. 78% in Zap. Yeah, I think it's not bad. It's not a contender for leaderboard because it's not trying to take that crown. Good plan. Good thinking. Don't do that. Do something a little bit different. But what do you think?
Yeah, smart little game, this, I thought. A lot to like. On disc, this is okay. I imagine on tape, it would have been a pain to actually, if it was loading each thing from tape, that could have been a bit of a oof. But we're not. We're playing on disc, so, it is what it is. The overhead view, I thought, worked pretty well. The visuals are simple. They're functional. It's just different coloured parts and arrows pointing in the gradient direction, but they tell you exactly what you need to know. So they impart the information, so you know that that's rolling down there, it's going to roll up there, you can work it out. If you hit it up, blah, blah, blah. I thought the graphics on the play were okay. But there's, like I said, some humorous animations. You get the ball in a par. There's even the little tune if you get a hole in one, which is quite nice. So you do something good and he jumps up if he gets a par. That's all good. But like you said, I think what makes this game, though, we've said about so many ball games where the physics are just arse. It's the physics in this. They just work. They do exactly what you expect them to do. And it makes this quite a satisfying skill-based game because of that control system. It's got the usual type of golf controls. It's similar to leaderboard, isn't it? You go up for the power, you press down, it comes down for you, and then it's your snap. You get your snap for your hook or your slice. It's a similar thing. I really like the fact that moving the crosshair tells you how far away it is. It just increases it, so it says 12, 13, 14 feet away. That's really nice. That's a really good feature on this kind of game, this kind of top-down, crazy golf-style game. The bounce on the ball is really good. The gradient's well realised. Just makes for a fun game. I thought the front end, I thought it was quite sort of skate or die-ish. The way that, you've got the guy and he sort of, he comes up popping out, handing you the big pen to type your name in and stuff like that. So it was kind of had that kind of presentational style and that sort of opening screen. It loses it once you get into the game. Obviously, the graphics are nothing like it, but that opening style presentation was quite nice. You just type them in, type your name in, and off you go. Pick your course, and you're up and you're ready to go. It's good that you can move between maybe on the opening screen when the hole is over multiple screens, so you can view the hole. Because sometimes it's like about 3 or 4 screens long, isn't it, to actually get to the hole, and you've got to try and work out where to bounce, where to hit it down, and that's nice as well. So yeah, they've made it fun. It's a little short, but it's fun, crazy golf sim. I imagine, like you said, in multiplayer with 4 people playing it, this would be a right, Doss. You'd have a proper laugh sort of thing trying to get it in, because it is skill based, so you've got to be quite good, but it's still get your snap wrong. And like you said, it's like crazy golf. You try and put it through, go for the cheeky hole in one, but it's hard, or you can just play it safe and maybe go for a par. This does all that. It does exactly that. Good stuff. 78% I thought was about right, and you are right. It needed a bit more atmosphere. There's just a bit more in game, just to sort of like you said, golf claps.
Yeah, something simple.
If ever there'd been a place for golf claps, this is it, Golf claps.
Yeah.
That's what it needed. Mini-Putt. Yeah, good stuff. I liked it. Never heard of it either as well. Never ever heard of this. But glad I played it. Liked it. Good stuff. Let's move on. We've got another golf game coming up. And this one is World Tour Golf. World Tour Golf. Okay, so this is full-on golf. Full-on. It's now some time since Leaderboard basically set the benchmark for golf games, and we've not seen too many pretenders to the crown, I don't think. Have we seen any other golf games, really? We had that.
Don't remember any.
There was that hole in one, but was that before? I can't really remember. I don't really think of anything. But we've got EA here attempting to steal that crown with their take on the Good Walk, on the Good Walk ruined in World Tour Golf. The game concept and design of this is by Evan Robinson, Nicky Robinson, and Paul Reich III. And I noted that good job his name wasn't the other way round, Paul Third Reich, which would be unusual and unfortunate. The graphics routines are by Dan Silver, and the music is by Tommy Dunbar. After the usual EA loading stuff where the EA logo appears and flashes for a bit, we get a golf ball that looks like the world before being presented with a CVGA or DOS-style menu. It's purple and white. You ever seen a purple and white menu on the C64?
No, and I don't want to again.
I hope you like it, because this is what it is. Anyway, you get the options to play, practice, and construction. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you choose to practice, you can practice a full hole, the putting green, the driving range, those three things. Construction allows you to play around with the existing holes, and it's a nice touch. You can construct stuff, I guess, if you really want to play around and make your own golf courses, but it's up to you. If you want to just play, you click on the play option. This allows you to choose from 1 to 4 players, the type of play, either stroke or match play. You only get match play, though, in 2 or more players. If you don't know the rules, it's based on the number of holes won over strokes. So it's you have to win the number of holes, basically, over strokes, which is how many strokes it takes you to get around the entire number of holes. It's different type of scoring. And then you can edit the players. You can change the name. You can change the handicap to the average distance of your drive, which was weird. I didn't quite understand what that meant. I just put it up loads. I just went 400.
Yes, Happy Gilmore mode.
Yeah, and the accuracy, and your accuracy. So I just put that up to 99. I was like, yeah, of course I'm accurate. What are you doing? I didn't understand it. Or you can leave them as they are. And the game also, when it first, they'll be providing you with golf plays at the time. So there was Jack Nicklaus, I think, when I started it.
Yeah.
There's other ones as well in there. So if everything's okay, you click on and you get to choose the course from Pebble Beach, Cypress Point, Montreal, Oakmont, Olympic, Augusta, St. Andrews, and one that has been specially designed. By the way, we've now got blue text for these. So it's your blue colour from your DOS. Or your CVJ, because CVJs are just blue, purple, white, and black, aren't they? If I remember rightly. So that's what this is. This looks like a DOS game. Then we're into the game itself. Before it starts, you're advised on the wind and the weather for the week, which affects the putting green. So it's like if it's been raining, it tells you maybe you need to put a bit harder than normal. If it's been fine, don't go so crazy on the putting. And then you're into the game. So it's a golf game. The game is split down the middle of the screen. The left-hand side is an aerial view of the hole. So you can see the hole, it's always there. The right of the screen shows you a 3D representation with a view from, I thought it was quite far behind the player. So it's going for that leaderboard look, but you're miles behind. You seem to your player is very small, and I didn't like. And the course is going off into the distance. At the top of this part on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a load of information. So you've got the name of the course. I don't know why you need that. The number of the hole. I don't know why you need that. The wind speed and direction. Okay. The par for the hole. Yeah, maybe you need that. Who is playing? Yeah, okay, well, the lie of the ball, which I was like, okay, I don't really know if you need that, but okay. How far to the hole, the number of strokes you've hit, and what club you are holding. Moving up and down the joystick changes the club, and moving left and right moves a crosshair. Now, it moves it in steps on the overhead view, and every time it does so, it redraws the 3D view on the right, so it's kind of weird. I didn't like it. And it's drawn quite quickly. And there's some nice trees, I guess. There's a bit more variation in the trees to look at. But your player is really small. And there's something not quite right with the perspective. I couldn't put my finger on it. It's just something not right. It looked weird. There's something off. It's not right. The issue here is that by drawing the view every time, this means that the aiming is not gradual, but in chunky steps. Whereas leaderboard, you just move the crosshair. So your view didn't really change that much. You just you were looking forward and you moved the crosshair, if I remember rightly. And then that, you aimed off to the left or off to the right. That was what you did. Here, it moves the entire view, but it does it in steps. There's no sensitivity. There's no movement, slow movement. There's no little sort of options just to move it slightly to the left. It's like 15 degrees or nothing because there's no fine tuning. I didn't like that. Anyway, once you've decided where to hit it, you press the fire button and a confusing circle appears. A confusing circle of hitting it. So this circle has parts around the sort of around the diameter. It has parts coloured in blue, some in brown, and some in grey, but no numbers or anything. And so within this, there's a line, there's a radial line that'll, when you press the fire button, it sets that line moving around the circle. It starts pointing down to the bottom and it moves up. So it moves to the left, so like a watch, clockwise around this circle. And I don't know, pressing the fire button again, I think chooses the amount of back speed, so back, how far you pull back the club, so how hard you're going to hit it. Pressing it again on the way back affects the snap of the hook, I think. I don't know. Sometimes this seems to do what you think it will do, and sometimes it will not. I couldn't really make it out. Should you make it to the green? So basically, you just whack it down the fairway. You generally end up in the trees, like I normally did. The ball will bend all over the place. It's got some weird physics in this, some really odd physics. Like it'll go straight, and if you've hooked it, then after about 200 yards, then now I better bend to the right. Really weird. Don't really work at all. So yeah, where's the green? Where was that? the control system is not great. It's not the worst thing. Should you make it to the green, then the left-hand view becomes a view of the green. So the overhead view it's like now an overhead view of the green, but it's drawn like like a kid's book. It's just chunky and it's got some lines on it that I think are supposed to represent the gradient, but I'm not sure. Aiming left to right here actually changes the view in real time on the right, but it's like being on a ship, as the horizon will lean from the left to the right.
Weird.
It's really odd rather than you shifting your aim. So instead of turning, it leans. And then the hole moves. It's just odd. Pressing fire brings up the circle, and it's here that all bets are off, because pressing the fire starts the line around the strangely coloured circle, and then pressing it again just makes you take the shot. There's no hook. There's nothing. There's no way I could discern of knowing just how far or fast you're going to hit it. And also as well, the direction that I seem to be aiming in and where it actually goes and whether it hits the hole is, it's just like roll the dice. Who knows? The controls of this are rubbish, but I don't think that's the worst thing. Like I said, it's the physics of the ball. We've seen Leaderboard do great golf ball physics, and even Mini-Putt. And this is all over the place in comparison, with the ball flying up and then flying down in contravention to the expectations we have of gravity. Just don't work like this. So sometimes you'll do a massive drive, but the ball will just fly nowhere and hit a tree that you were not aiming at. There's no subtlety to the aiming, so it's almost impossible to know where you're going to hit it. And then we get the put in. Taking any shot sees the ball wobble away from you, and sometimes, even when nowhere near the hole, it'll go in. This is just bad. This is a bad golf game. This was out on other machines. It's out on the Amiga, Apple IIgs, and DOS. It feels like a crap conversion from the DOS or the Apple to the C64. That's what this feels like. There's no fun to be had here because there's no real enjoyment in taking a shot, or any feeling that you're actually in control of what you're doing. The aiming is crap, the physics are all over the place, and the visuals are poor in comparison to world-class Leaderboard. Whilst those other machines may not have had that game on them, there was no reason to subject us to this when we do. Don't play this, or at least don't play the C64 version. It's a bad golf game wrapped up in a lot of options and DOS-style presentation. This simply was not a fun golf game. It just made me yearn for Leaderboard all the more. What about you? What did you think to this thing?
Well, there's a reason why Leaderboard is the best golf game, and this just demonstrates why. This is a good reminder of why Leaderboard is so brilliant at what it does. The stupid thing here is it was a DOS game. There's a DOS version of this. Yeah. It was 1986, and it is in all the garish purple colours and all that. It's just, okay, this is just why, you've made a golf game, fine, and you ported it to a machine that had a much superior game, possibly to try and squeeze a bit of money out of the golf teat. I don't know. I didn't like anything about this at all. I thought it was overloady, because it just took forever to load things in and load things in and load things in, but these DOS conversions do. It was way too clicky, so there was loads of clicking, click on this, click on that, click on this, click on this, click, 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 click. Don't need any of that. I'd just come fresh off Mini-Putt as well, so I felt the pain of too many clicks and too much loading and these horrible power controls that made no sense whatsoever. You don't need any of that. And I mean, later arcades kind of emulate a little bit of this sort of style, I suppose, in a way. So maybe there's some, arcade games looked at some of the ideas in the little power circle bar for inspiration, but not like that. They didn't. They sort of looked at it and went, let's do it right. Let's do it properly. Let's have some kind of indication of power that goes up and then back again. Yeah. Like a golf swing, one might say.
Yes.
Just small, bitty graphics, and it just wasn't Leaderboard for me, and I yearned for it. And I thought, why on earth would anyone play this? Why would you do it? It's more expensive than world-class Leaderboard as well.
Yeah, it is $12.95, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the question I asked myself is, why would I play this? And then I thought, okay, let's just, let's take the comparison goggles off a moment. And let's say, can I play a decent game of golf with this? Barely, but I suppose you could if you really pushed it. It's just boring, arduous, and overcomplicated. So it is those things. And if you can put up with that, and you've never heard of the words Leaderboard, or you've never even come across that, which is very unlikely, then you would be crazy to have bought this, and then someone's going to show you the Access game, Leaderboard, and you're going to go, why did I buy this World Tour Golf crap? So now you're going to get club envy straight away. They've just walked up with some really expensive golf clubs, and you've got matchsticks and a snooker key that you've glued something to the end of the shoe.
Baguette.
Yeah, it's not good. So just all kinds of awful. This. Terrible. I'm surprised it got 55%. I would have given it much lower than that. That's like saying it's half good. It's not. It's really horrible.
It's more than half bad because it doesn't play a good round of golf.
No, it doesn't.
We've seen that the machine is more than capable of doing that.
Well, we have, and that's just a crime, isn't it? Just don't bother with this if you're thinking about playing a golf game on the C64. By now, we've already mentioned 3 golf games from Access that are better than this. Yeah. Let alone Mini-Putt. So even that Nick Faldo's with the multiple Nick Faldo's.
Oh, yeah, Nick Faldo's, multiple Nick Faldo's. Yeah.
That was better than this rubbish. So no, World Tour Golf can bloody do one. Get lost.
Yeah.
Ball's gone in the rough and I ain't going back for it. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a proper bogey.
It is a massive bogey. Yeah, this isn't good. This isn't good at all.
It's really not. Oh, there we go. That's that first half done. We've looked at 4 games. 2 good, 2 bad.
50% success.
That's actually quite high for us. So I count that as a win of late.
We should have bewaired the Ides of March, really, shouldn't we?
We really should have. Anyway, right, we're on the back of that terrible golf game. We're going to go take a quick break. We'll be coming back for the back 9, should we say, after this, or the middle 9. We'll be looking at TV in 1988. So please stay with us, and we'll be back in a mo.
Heavily frosted cupcakes and gallons of milky tea to our much-loved show sponsor, DavidHearnWriter.com, where you will find a whole bunch of brilliant audiobooks, bargain books, ebooks, and more. I can tell you, David is a multi-talented fellow of some renown. And to prove it, let's take a listen to an excerpt from his amazing audiobook, Escape from the Commodore 64, which is available right now.
Frustrated, she pushed the corner of the aha poster back into place. "Stay," she whispered. She waited. When it fell loose again with a soft thwack, she threw her hands in the air and instead let herself fall backwards onto her bed. With a pillow held over her head, Sarah screamed out her frustrations. If only Morton could climb out of his music video and whisk her away into staticky bliss. A girl could wish. She thought of Reese's first crush on the back of his door, her checkered love matching his checkered past of returning games, or worse, making others do it for him.
Well, colour me convinced. That sounds bloomin' awesome. For more, you can visit DavidHearnWriter.com. That's David, Hearne, writer.com to grab yourself some of that juicy, juicy stuff. What are you waiting for?
Indeed, we are back. It is March 1988, and these are the things that were amusing us on our, apart from the C64, on our TV screens. 3rd of March, BBC One airs Around the World with Willie Fogg, former BBC and Broomcover presenter Andy Crane singing the theme tune. A special event called National Willie Fogg Day, which Crane invented. Can't just invent a day. I'm not having that. Will also appear on 28th of April to air the final episode and celebrate the final broadcast. There we go.
Yes, for the first time, they actually showed a full animated series from start to finish.
I know.
The novelty of that. Yeah, well, they normally didn't.
No, they didn't. No. We know we got bits and bobs and it's just like, just deal with it.
So,
right.
Contrary to what you might think, this is a Spanish-Japanese animated television adaptation. I never got Spanish-Japanese from it. I just have to say.
Did you not? I thought it was French. I thought it was D'Artagnan French. I thought that was
it's Spanish-Japanese. It's probably. I think it's the same company. I could be wrong though. Please don't kill me, Google people. I don't know that for sure. This is an adaptation of the 1873 novel, obviously Around the World in 80 Days, by Jules Verne, produced by the Spanish studio BRB Internacional and Televisión Española. Yeah, Jules Verne. And animation by Japanese studio Nippon Animation. So that's who did it all. Now, here's the thing. With all the international versions, the height of popularity still remains in Spain, where a sequel series, Willy Fogg 2, was produced in 1993, which has the characters in adaptations of Jules Verne's science fiction novels Journey to the Centre of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Furthermore, in 2008, the series spawned a live-action theatrical musical show in celebration of its 20th anniversary, which prompted me to ask the question, did the idea of live-action Willy bring in the wrong crowd?
Who knows? I mean, the term Willy Fogg is sounds like a euphemism.
Did you watch these? Did you join in with this? Did you join in with the sing-song? Fogg, I'm the one who made the bet. All that.
It's the 80 days around the world.
Yeah.
We're gonna hide it there.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, it's another catchy 80s theme tune, isn't it? Probably. I probably did. Yeah.
Do you remember? Because the characters who were in it sing the song in itself. Yeah. So, and there was actually, obviously, these are redubbed. So the international version is in obviously a different language. we obviously saw the redubbed version for our English minds, where we get but obviously they sang the theme tune. I've never heard the theme tune sang in any other language. I'd like to see if I can track that down.
Is it the same tune, just with different? Obviously, that's quite. Imagine that's quite tricky fitting different languages into the same tune because of obviously the way that different. They have different.
They found a way. They found a way. But can you remember any of the characters in it besides Willy Fogg?
No.
Rigodon. Here I am, a Rigodon. Remember that? A Tico, the mascot. Remember Tico as well?
I have to say that apart from the theme tune, I wasn't a massive fan of Willy Fogg.
No. I was thinking of rewatching them, but I haven't because I remember then that the baddie in it has a shiny eye, and I don't like things with shiny eyes, so I avoided it.
Beware the shiny-eyed guy.
Yes, he has a shiny eye. That's how you know he's the baddie, because he goes, yes, I'll get that Willy Fogg. And his eye goes, ooh.
Did he then go on to become the baddie in Last Action Hero?
It could be, yes.
Charles Dance. He had a shiny eye.
It's a strange career move, Charles Dance, from that to Game of Thrones from Willy Fogg. It's a natural progression on his CV, I think.
When you're a jobbing actor.
Alien 3, Game of Thrones, Willy Fogg.
What can you do? I do a mean, shiny eye. Show me. Not that eye.
Put it away. Goodness me.
Put it away, Charles.
And now dance. Dance for me, Charles. Dance for me, Charles.
That is very shiny.
And slightly wet at the tip.
Ew. Looks like you've got a bit of Willy Fogg.
God's sake. We apologise now if we've ruined Willy Fogg for you if you are a fan. It might just put you off for life. The idea of Charles dancing naked with his Willy Fogg. And sorry, Charles, as well. We have nothing against you. We've got no beef with you. Just want to be clear on that.
As long as you don't try and hypnotise us with your shiny eye.
Exactly, yes. No swinging that thing around.
That took a turn.
It did.
That's fair normal. Right, 11th of March. The final episode of the long-running children's series Play School is broadcast on BBC One. Although repeats would continue until October.
Just to make sure that would confuse children. Now, children, this is the final episode. And then 2 weeks later, now, children, this is the final episode. I can't remember if I feel like I've seen this before. Yeah, you haven't.
You haven't. I mean, not that there was some ongoing, overarching, narrative or anything, was there? Not like Breaking Bad or anything.
No, they just repeated the logic of it, didn't they? And the Teletubbies came along. But what was that through the round window? Do you remember the opening for this?
Which window will it be?
Yeah. Through the round window, retirement and redundancy awaited for the crew of people in there.
The last episode was indeed bleak. Humpty just in the corner angry, Jemima shooting up, Big Ted beating up Little Ted and stealing his dole money, and Hamble offering to knock you off for a $5.
God, that's dark. That's like Play School, dark web. God. No, that's like, imagine if they go back to that, could be going, but what happened after Play School? They're interviewing all the characters and they're talking this Big Ted going, well, I had to beat Little Ted up for his money. I was skint. And then Little Ted going, you didn't have to do that though, did you?
Like 7 Up.
Yeah. And then Hamble's all they are cranked up and rancid.
So she's got no teeth.
Yeah, no gummy. Yeah, she's all gummy and no teeth.
Proper gummer. I always used to get Play School and Play Away. Was it Play Away?
Yeah. Play
Away. I didn't like either of them.
Yeah. The unfortunately named Brian Cant was in one of those.
He was in Play Away, yeah. I think he did appear in both of them. Derek Griffiths and people like that were in there. Floella Benjamin wanted.
Yeah, she was lovely though. Really nice.
Play School. It was, but I just didn't like him. I think I was too old by this point for Play School. I was 16.
Yes.
I don't know why I was still watching it.
You may be demographically challenging them here. There's nothing in this show for me.
Absolutely. Where's my Willy Fogg?
Look, you can watch this. At least you can find out how yogurts get made. There's got to be more to life than that. Charles, do your dance. Dance for me, Charles.
I was only interested in the last episode when it went really dark. I thought that was really good. Anyway, 18th of March, the final US edition of Top of the Pops is broadcast. There we go.
Thank God.
Yes. Show that no one in the US understood, as you've rightly pointed out before.
They didn't get it. I mean, I know the logic of it, right? Lots going on in the US, loads of recording acts not wanting to jump the Atlantic to visit a crap BBC studio. Makes logistical, sense to have a dual broadcast show. But the weird formatting, I've got a couple of YouTube clips that we'll put in the show notes of it, the weird formatting of it. It's like a UK show, but made with Americans who don't quite get what it is, why they're there, or what they're doing.
Yep.
So they just don't quite get it. And of course, we understand the idea of pops and hit parades and people dancing in the studio and doing that. I can't. I mean, they're in that environment, they must have been like, "What are we doing? What is this? Why do the Brits want this?"
I don't know. There is a lot of hair, as you've noted, in those year's Top of the Pop clips.
There is.
There's also just stops in the middle for some American adverts in that clip you've linked to, so I'll share that. Because I was interested that Mad Jack's was having their lowest price on audio, car, stereo, and video, and you could get a third off carpets at any branch of San Diego Carpet. Bargains.
Absolute bargain. I mean, I don't know what networks it was on in the US, I've no idea, but the US had the Hot 100 and they used the word hits more than pops for their stuff. That's how they differentiated us. We had pops and they had hits. They had the Big Mac, we had the Big Mick.
The Golden Axe, we have the Golden Arches.
Their buns had no seeds. But I watched the full episode that we've got there, and it is weird, isn't it? The axe of the axe, but I just don't think it really washed with the Americans. I don't think they quite dig it. It'd be interesting if we've got any American listeners who tuned into the US version of Top of the Pops. I can't imagine there's many, and what they thought of it, because all the presenters on it, I've never heard of any of them. Did you hear of any of them?
I also wonder as well, was it nationally syndicated? Because obviously American TV is incredibly, hugely different because it's so massive. It's so different to the UK, whereas UK's BBC is just, nationally syndicated. Whereas in America, you've got all those WKRB, KRKB and stuff like that all across the country.
I don't know if it was on a commercial station, as you say, then it's, I don't know.
Was it on CBS or NBC or ABC or whatever there was back then?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. It might have been. You could probably dig into it and find out, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously didn't last long because we've actually covered when it started on this podcast.
Yes. Yes, it's been around a while. So.
Well, it's not that long. That's what I mean. It's like...
Top of the Pops, I thought you meant it's been around a while.
No, Top of the Pops has, but the American version, I mean, we mentioned the American version starting because we mentioned it not so long back.
I think there was, every time there was a change of ownership in the BBC end, and by ownership, I don't mean changes in the BBC, but I mean that the programme got a new producer. Everything about Top of the Pops changed. Every producer kind of brought their twist, and then they had one producer later after this, actually, once they'd biffed this US thing, who kind of stuck around for quite a while and kind of set the benchmark for all of the 90s. I forget the name of the guy, young guy, and he brought in a lot of new and interesting things to it, a lot of live acts, and a lot of British acts and live acts came back.
Yeah.
And so it was less about getting the famous names in and more about getting actual musicians into play live and stuff, and they made it live again, I think, for the first time in a while, properly live. So interesting times, but there you go.
21st of March gets even more exciting. Anglia's silver statue of a knight on horseback ident is consigned to history, having been used as Anglia's identity since the station went on the air 29 years earlier. It is replaced by a new identity, a quasi heraldic stylized A made of triangles that is pointed out on that video you linked to. Looks like the Triforce. It was designed by Robinson Lambie Nairn at a cost of £500,000.
Ouch.
About Anglia is also given a new look to coincide with the ident change. Do things get more exciting?
It was a big deal. And I'll tell you what, I didn't realise when I watched the original Anglia ident, because I always remember the short version. So all I remember was da 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 ba da da ba ba.
Yeah.
But in that version, it went on forever. I was like, God, people must have been bored out of their minds waiting for that. Like, sat looking at this ident going, is this thing ever going to end? It's the whole piece of classical music's in there. Da 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 da. I'm like, oh my God, and the guy filming that thing must have been like, there's only so many ways I can rotate around this thing.
I can spin this knight about on a horse. Yeah.
Close up, mid close up, really close up. Oh dear. $500,000 quat loose for that. Did have CG cloth animation though in the new one, didn't it?
That's quite clever for 1988.
Very advanced for its time. A bit of the old CG cloth. They were touching CG cloth for the first time.
Absolutely. It cost them £500,000.
£500,000 worth of digital cloth.
It's probably what you need to clean up that night.
Digital cloth sounds like a really naff band.
It does. They're the warm-up act for Digital Persuasion.
We are digital cloth. Oh.
We will touch you.
I'm not paying £500,000 for you. Get off.
Do. The Knicks are cover.
That's just the Anglia bloody TV ident music. Get off.
They play it spinning round like the knight.
Dressed as knights.
Stage. Yeah, we are heraldic.
Oh dear. Yes.
Yeah. 25th of March, BBC Two shows Two of Us, a gay-themed television film. It was produced as part of the BBC Schools Scene programme and was intended for young adults. It confronted the Thatcherite government's attempt to ban gay sex education in schools via the controversial and since repealed Section 28 legislation. Given this backdrop, the BBC opted not to show it during the day, and it was screened late at night on this day, even though it was originally created for a school audience. In 1990, the play was finally shown during the day when it was broadcast in a lunchtime slot, and everyone was at school.
Yep, everyone missed it.
So why not show it during tea time or something? It's not. I did watch a bit of this. Okay, good intentions. It's not very good though. It's terribly acted.
Yeah, I thought it was quite. I've watched the bit and it was very wooden. I think it was obviously aimed at that school education piece very clearly. So it was never going to work outside of that context. I felt a bit sorry because it was kind of, you could see where they were pitching it, you know. It was, and it's very important that these things had an outlet at that time. Kind of crazy and cowardly of the BBC. Crazy that they would produce it, and amazing that they did. Cowardly that they decided not to kowtow to the government's regulation, stupid, ridiculous regulation at the time.
Yep.
And not do it in the right time, and just silly, really. I mean, I suppose they did put it on, but late at night when no one could see it, and then later on. How many years later? A few years later.
Yeah, 1990.
When everyone forgot about it. Yeah,
and then also as well, they changed. You noted here that the film has two endings. So
it does.
Which is kind of weird because the film concerns itself with these two friends at school, and one of them runs away because he's gay, and he's getting harassed. His mate gets confused between his girlfriend and his love for him, and goes.
That's
and
right.
Then he goes off, and then so this is the plot. So the film has two endings according to this. Phil returns to Matthew at the beach. So they've gone off. They've gone off to live at, where is it? Seaford on the Sussex coast.
Yeah.
And they sort of basically run together into the ocean because they're swimmers. That's how they used to hang around, go swimming together. And that's that ending. That's the original ending. But they were re-released in 1988 with an ending where Phil appears to leave with his girlfriend instead, but Matthew decides that life must go on and that he's his own person. It's like, oh well, like completely kind of, I don't know whether that undercuts the message a bit or
does a little bit, doesn't it? It's even changing it from its original is silly. So
yeah, just leave it as it was. Seems odd.
Yep.
Anyway, been properly George Lucas'd.
Jar Jar Binks is in it.
Yeah, probably in the new version. And there's loads of little things running around Seaford Beach. Loads of them just CGI'd in badly.
My give up. Jar Jar, pass out the booba.
Sometime in March.
Sorry, Judge, get out of here, Jar Jar. Goodness sake, I've told you before, you're not welcome.
Sometime in March, I didn't have a date on this. Number 73 is broadcast for the final time on ITV. It had been known as 7T3. That's the number 7, the letter T, and the number 3 since January. Do you remember that?
It still was number 73.
I remember number 73, but I don't remember it being 7T3.
Well, there's a few things that I didn't realise about it. Firstly, that each season of number 73 was set in a different place, in a different imaginary place. It was still number 73, but new stuff was happening in and around there. So 73 was part of that kind of remit in the last season, as it were.
Right.
So I didn't realise that the Sandy Toksvig character was actually playing a character. I thought it was just Sandy Toksvig, but it wasn't. She actually played a character in it who gradually got younger with every season. That's the stick of her character.
Okay.
Yeah, weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the show would feature actors in character hosts, and they would perform comedic stuff around the guests and music videos and all that kind of stuff. But according to the blurb, much of the show was improvised, and a whole week of rehearsals, plus an extensive dress rehearsal on Friday, preceded each live broadcast. Which doesn't, to me, shout, if you're rehearsing something, how is it improvised?
I don't know.
That's just stupid. They broke their own rules.
Yeah, that's illogical, Captain.
It is. And there was obviously new characters. In the final season, there was a character in it called Rob the Builder, who played an out-of-work actor trying to make extra money by moonlighting as a builder. There's no connection between Rob the Builder and Bob the Builder.
So they had someone in doing barra jobs.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
For those who don't know and are not from the Grimsby area, a barra job is what you do for a bit of cash in hand.
Yeah, cash in hand work. Yeah,
I can build that fence for you. You don't have to just pay his cash in hand, and it don't go through the books then.
Yeah, not that we recommend that because the HMRC, Her Majesty's Royal Customs and Office, don't take kindly to tax evasion.
No, but barra jobs, no. But if you need your fence building, then we're your men.
yeah.
Cash in hand.
Cash in hand, yeah. Govy. Some people call them govies. Anyway, so the following September saw the end of that off, and that was when that Motor Mouth started with Neil Buchanan and all that. So
I'm sure we'll get to that in September, I guess.
Yeah, eventually.
We'll mention that. New shows for this month. On the 9th of March, there was Chelmsford 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Did you ever like this?
I never got into it at all. I tried watching a bit of it, and I could sort of see that it might have been my thing had I persevered. Where was the humour level pitched at?
It's quite. I think it's a bit of Blackaddery sort of thing, but it's sort of it's like an early version of what was that other one? There's been something recently about, was it Plebs or something?
Plebs, yeah. Similar.
It's that, but I mean, this came from the people who did Who Dares Wins, so it's a sitcom,
which was always okay.
And the humour in it was that Jimmy Mulville it's basically set in early Roman Britain. So Chelmsford 1, 2, 3. So year 1, 2, 3, set in Chelmsford in the year 123. The Romans have conquered Britain, and the Britons are there. So what it is essentially you've got Roy McGrath who's like the leader of the British.
What's his name? Mudblood or something?
Yeah, it's something like, I can't remember the name.
Blagvod. Is it Blagvod? I think.
Yes, and then you got Jimmy Mulville, who's a Roman, and it's essentially it's kind of Bilko-esque a bit. It's that sort of
they're trying to outsmart each other, aren't they?
Yeah, the Britons are always trying to get one over on the Romans, and by having schemes and stuff like that and things like that. So it's that kind of setup. But yeah, so it's by the people who did Who Dares Wins, Roy McGrath, Jimmy Mulville, Philip Pope. It is good. I used to laugh for this. I mean, I used to really like Who Dares Wins as well as a sketch show on Channel 4. I thought that was quite good. I always remember the sort of point of view ones they used to do. There's a good one they did with a point of view of a cat going to get spayed, and then the cat passes out and comes back, and it's just shocked to find that its balls have gone.
Okay. That doesn't sound hilarious. That sounds horrible.
It's just because Jimmy Mulville's doing the voice of the cat, and when he's shocked, he's like, "What's going on?" Well, I feel a bit thinking, "Where have my balls gone?" It's like, so it was good. It is good, and I did like that. So I do think Chelmsford 1, 2, 3 was actually quite funny. I used to like watching
I mean, I watched it. I found the entire series on YouTube. We'll put the link in the show notes. I watched the first one. It looks like it's the sort of thing that would be quite funny in that kind of classic sitcom setup. Yeah. So, and not many sets. And I think there was in the first episode, there's a Roman body on the floor, and he comes in and goes, "Why have you killed that?" There's just the kind of setups that you'd expect in this. Characters being what they are. It looks quite funny. Rowan McGrath is always good to watch, so I might check it out.
13th of March was Mr. Magica.
Creepy looking thing.
I never liked this. Never.
No.
I don't even know what it was, if I'm perfectly honest. Could you explain what it was?
Mr. Magica is a teacher at a primary school, but he's no ordinary teacher. Apparently he can fly into things, and he does magic and stuff like that, and he turns into a bicycle.
He turns into a bicycle?
I think so, yeah. He says there's boring lessons on a magic carpet, which he then turns his magic carpet into a bicycle. He could turn into a bicycle as well. Apparently he's a wizard. He's obviously some kind of wizard, but he looks creepy. He's got orange face, round glasses, and a really crazy haircut. Yeah. I don't like it. It's the sort of thing it's the stuff of nightmares.
Yes, it sort of sits in that Wessel Gummidge camp.
Yeah, it's just they think kids like this kind of thing, and I don't know that they do. Maybe they do. No one's ever had fond memories of Mr. Magica, as far as I'm aware.
No, they have not.
But it's not my wasn't my demographic for this at all. It was kind of that silly kids programs that annoyed the hell out of me. Give me Scooby-Doo any day of the week. Much more realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. 14th of March was South. I could find nothing on this. I couldn't find any. I looked for Phil Redmond. It's by Phil Redmond, who did Grey Jill.
That's all I could find out.
Yeah, that's it. He did Grey Jill, and then he did something called South on ITV.
Did he do Brookside, Phil Redmond?
He did Brookside as well, yeah. So this is, he's done a lot of stuff, but he also did something called South.
Yeah, check it out.
And that's it. Because we couldn't find anything on it. 21st of March, Lucky Ladders started.
It did. Do you remember much about it?
I watched that episode. I found an episode and watched it, and it made me laugh because it's terrible. And it rang a bell as to what it was. It's like a crappy. It's like a sort of proto chain letters in a way.
Same setup. I think from the same family of stuff.
Yeah. So this was hosted by Lenny Bennett, who ironically died in 2009 after falling off a ladder.
That's true.
Clearly not a lucky one.
Not lucky for him.
No, that's what I mean. So, anyway. So, yeah, so the point of this game was you had two sets of contestants, and you got there was a word at the top. The first one I saw, there was prison at the top or something like that, and treasure at the bottom. And so there was like 8 gaps in between them, and they would give you would take a letter either below prison, and it would say prison, and it would say B. It would give you a B, and it might be like break, because it rhymes with break, and then you get like a G, and it might be glass, and it would work its way down by changing the word, and you'd have to guess them all the way down. If you didn't guess the word, it would go to the other team, and they could get an extra letter, and so on and so forth. And if you made the final connection, then you went to go to the prize, and you could win a holiday. I think there was holidays to the Alps and stuff, and all kind of places. So prizes were quite good, but it was really, really low rent studio.
Yeah,
I mean,
can imagine.
they were really close together. It was like claustrophobically close. It's weird.
Not much room in there.
No, and his hair didn't look like that. He's had a haircut since that picture what we've got there. But for some reason, in my head, I always had down that Lenny Bennett was a ventriloquist, and I always thought he did Lenny the Lion. I don't know why. So maybe it's Lenny Bennett, Lenny the Lion. But it turns out I was actually thinking of Lenny the Lion was moused by Terry Hall.
Yes,
and I found a clip of him which we'll put in where he's on the rainbow and he comes on and it's literally carrying an old sack that's supposed to be a lion. So I put a picture there of the lion, which is
it's a creepy looking thing. Well, I'll tell you what, it looks nothing like Lenny Bennett.
No, he doesn't.
Even after he'd fallen off that ladder, he didn't look like that.
I don't know why I thought this was, but I think something in my head had conflated. It's probably the name Lenny. What it is, what you can't see there on that picture is the body of the lion, which is literally just a sack.
Well, yes. People were entertained by the simplest of things back then.
And it's very odd as well, because in that rainbow clip, he's stroking Bungle. He's like, you're nearly as fairy as I am.
What is it with these weird characters? There's that thing, Orville, there's that monkey.
Don't know. Oh, Chuckles. Was it?
Chuckles Snuffles, was it the monkey one? I ate that joke, that one.
Yeah,
and
that
then,
one.
Keith Harris, wasn't there? And then you had all the other weirdos.
Well, there's Ralph Alderson Emu. There was Bernie Clifton and the ostrich.
Well, let's not forget, I mean, the large percentage of the humour was that there was one guy, what was his name? The guy that had the broken microphone and the car door. And
Norman Collier.
Norman Collier just spent an entire career. Part of his act initially was imitating a chicken. So,
yeah, it was
true.
Yeah, it was.
People were entertained by the simple things back then, simple times.
Yeah, and you had things like Jiminy Cricket or Jimmy Cricket.
Jimmy Cricket, the way he tells them. Yeah,
the way he tells them that. with his wellies on the wrong feet.
Yes, and who was that other really weird one that used to just go spook all the time? What was he called? What was he called? I can't remember. There were so many of them at this point. It was on telly all the time.
They had a lot of space to fill with crap comedians.
Stu Francis.
Crushy Grape. Finally, just to round off, 29th of March, codename Kyril? Kyril, Kyril. This was a Cold War espionage drama starring Ian Charleson, Edward Woodward, Denholm Elliott, Joss Ackland, and Richard E. Grant. This bit made me laugh from the write-up. It was aired over 2 consecutive nights, not this bit, this isn't funny, in the UK in March 1988. Due to a transmission error at the time of the original UK broadcast on ITV, this programme was a 2-part spy thriller, and it's supposed it was really complex. So due to an error, 3 minutes of the programme were missing for British viewers in 1988, and that footage contains information critical to the plot.
Of course it does.
MI6 operative Peter Jackson tells Lawrence Sculby that he must pretend to be a Russian agent in order to gain Kyril's confidence, until Sculby used the words "for the love of the motherland" as a code phrase to convince him, and that was gone.
Need that info.
When you're watching it, it's like, what's happening? What's he said that for? That's a strange thing to say.
Where's Lenny Bennett when you need him, and Lenny the Lion?
Absolutely. I can only assume that this was being broadcast by the TVAM crew.
Oh, without doubt. Yeah, the T-boy had just gone, I forgot about the first 3 minutes. Oh, well.
Oh, well. I'm sure it was nothing important.
No one will know.
What's he on about, Motherland?
Oh, this is rubbish. This is almost as if the first 3 minutes were missing.
Oh, put Lucky Ladders back on.
Like a critical 3 minutes, not like any ordinary 3 minutes. No. Like the bit you really need to know. It's like having a jigsaw piece missing out of a puzzle, isn't it?
I know, that made me laugh. So it's just typical of British TV in the 80s.
It is
like,
very typical.
Matter. It doesn't matter. That bit won't be.
Matter.
Doesn't matter.
Might as well show it backwards. Show the first episode last and the last episode first, just for a laugh.
Yeah, just cut them up into chunks. Go full on. What's his face? William Burroughs. Just edit the entire program into nonsense.
Yes, cut it up into different lines and techniques.
Absolutely, cut up technique. I like rather. There we go. There you go. That's your TV. We had
God March's drub. Jesus.
Yeah, the most interesting thing was £500,000 on an ident.
Yeah, we're back to that. Do you know, this is the beginning of the year TV blues. We had this a year ago, or a couple of years ago, when the best thing that happened in the month on TV was an ident change. Yeah, things honestly in the TV land are very bland at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, the more they change, the more idents they change, the more it stays the same.
Yeah.
Should we say? Right, there we go. We're going to go away for a quick break. We'll be back. We've got 4 more games still to come up, so please stay with us and give us your time.
Jumbo sausage and chips to our delicious show sponsor, davidhearnwriter.com, where you will find an amazing collection of audiobooks, bargain books, ebooks, and more. David recently accepted the position of Deputy Mayor of Targ, and yet still found time to write the awesome book, Escape from the Commodore 64. Just have a listen to this.
Nell spun on her heel and glared at her, finger pressed to her lips. It was too late. Visitors, a voice crackles over an unseen PA system. Stay a while. Rather not, Sarah grumbled. Stay forever, the voice boomed. Nell threw her arms in the air, her frustration evident even from the other end of the room. Frustration grew to fear as a robot glided into view from a platform above.
Blimey, I'm grabbing me some copies of that and I'm taking them to Dizzo or Lave. To get your own copy of that and many, many more, visit davidhearnwriter.com. That's David, Hearne, writer.com. Don't rest on your retros now. Hit your blast button and get over there.
Keeping up with the Commodore, yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you.
And we're back. 4 more games in this half. Hopefully, we'll have just as high a hit rate as we had in that first section where we had 50% high. That's quite good for us. So let's see if we can carry that level on. Let's get into stuff. So our first game, we've got another submarine simulator. Another one. 2 in 1 episode. This is the Hunt for Red October. Pricey, 15 quid.
Very pricey.
Very pricey. So this is the game based on Tom Clancy's first novel, not the film. The film wasn't out yet. And this concerns itself with a Russian submarine commander who is trying to defect and bring with him the new submarine that the Russians have developed that can run almost silently with a brand new Caterpillar drive. So in the height of the Cold War, as this was written in 1984, the thought of a silent nuclear-equipped Russian submarine being able to park itself just off the coast of America is literally the stuff of US military nightmares.
Just a bit.
Essentially, because it could essentially just launch a nuke at Washington and it would be there. I mean, no time to react, it'd be done. So the book is actually credited with bringing the genre of the techno thriller into the mainstream. There you go. It was Clancy's first. It's despite writing about the government, CIA, and international conflict, and Clancy being, quite linked with all that kind of thing. When you think Tom Clancy, you think that clandestine military operations and stuff. Well, Tom Clancy was working at an insurance agency when he wrote this that he bought from his grandmother.
Okay.
So kind of weird. Amazing that the author, probably most connected with video games and militarism, think Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, all those games, all that lot. He never worked in the military because he was myopic. Yeah, so then he never actually did. Yeah, it's astonishing, really. So I always thought he was some kind of military advisor. I just thought, he then turned his hand to writing books because a lot of his early stuff, I was like, he must have done, but no, he just made it all up.
Fair play.
Weird. So this game is based on the book. As I said, the film does not appear until 1990. There's actually another version of the game based on the film that's released in 1990. So
there is.
We'll get another Hunt for October sometime later. This was released by Grand Slam Entertainment, and the C64 version was coded by Jeff Gammon. That's Jefgamon. So it's a man who obviously has issues with double letters in his name. It's kind of weird. Outside that, or Jeff Game On. I don't know, Game On? Game On? It's weird. Anyway, got visuals by Jason Kingsley. It's not clear, though, whether that's the case. This was released for loads of formats, and the credits are a bit all over the place. They're just kind of all lumped together. There's one manual for every... It's just, you get a manual for it, but it's just for every format. It's just got every credit in it, so who knows? So the game itself wastes no time and starts you straight in. So kind of like the other submarine game, there's no title screen. You just start.
In.
When it loads up, you're in. So the screen is split in half with a map of the North Atlantic in the top half of the screen, and the icons you will use to control your attempted defection at the bottom. The game follows the plot of the book. Starts off with the Red October already in the sea and off, and it's your job to get to the Americans so they can have the new subtech. You start off you're kind of to the north of Scotland. You're in the North Sea. Is it the North Sea? Is it the Bering? No, what's the sea called around the top? Is it the Bering Sea?
The top sea.
Can't remember what. It's not called the top sea. It's not called Turvey.
That's the bottom.
It's the topsy-turvy. It's up there. It's north of Scotland. You're up there. And your position is depicted by a red submarine-shaped sort of icon or whatever, and you're up there. So you start off to there. The game is fully icon driven, and your icon is your cursor is a hammer and sickle.
Obviously.
Kind of good. So you can move this about freely. You move it all around the screen. There's plenty of controls to get to grips within this. I'll do my best to get through some of them or most of them and sort of say what they do. There's quite a lot here. So when the game starts, you've got 5 icons across the bottom. So the UI takes up the bottom half of the screen. And the bottom left of the UI, there's 5 icons across there. They are your sonar, the engines, the weapons, the periscope, and the map. Next to these, across the bottom, is an information panel that sort of is a bit taller. So at the top of that, you've got the time and the date. If you click on that, it switches between the time and the date. You've got the speed indicator, a visual speed indicator. You've got then the speed in numerical form. You've got the heading and the depth. that you are at. Then there's also at the bottom, there's the contour display button and the sonar display button. Next to these are a compass and a visual depth indicator, so you can kind of see how deep you are, where your submarine is. So let's move across. If you press the sonar button, this kind of takes you to the sonar icons. So the icons all change. This is quite sort of contextually based. You press one of these sort of header icons and it takes you into the submenus, but it just changes those 5 icons. So it's kind of all just stays the same, just the icons change. So you can bring up a more detailed view of the ocean around you. You can ping your sonar to look for enemies. You can also bring up a graphical representation of the ocean around you, and this allows you to see this in all directions. And that's kind of like a wireframe visual. So you can, if you've dived quite deep, it's kind of a view of the sort of seabed. So you can see whether there's rocks and you're about to hit you or anything like that. And you can also bring up sonar signatures for enemy ships. I think that's what it is. So if you get pinged by an enemy ship, you can kind of recognize which one it is. If you go into the engines menu, this brings up the option to run on full nuclear power, so full steam ahead, or auxiliary, so a little bit slower and quieter. You can also run on the normal propeller, or you can turn on the silent caterpillar drive. The weapons icon then brings up the number of torpedoes, allows you to manually aim them, it allows you to deploy flak, and it allows you to shoot them as well. Finally, the periscope option lets you use your periscope, and that brings up a 3D view of the world around you in the top half of the screen in all directions, so you can sort of move and look in all directions. But of course, you have to be close to the surface to do this, because if you try and bring up your periscope, click the periscope icon, and you've dived quite deep, they're all grayed out, they're all blacked out, so you can't do that. In the other part, if you press the speed, heading, or depth options, this brings up a small set of options again that changes where they are, and that allows you to increase or decrease your speed, your heading, or your depth, and then you press the execute button or your cancel button if you think, actually, no, I don't want to do that. So you can speed up, slow down, change your heading, change how deep you are, or anything like that. In this manner, you can pretty quickly control most aspects of your sub easily and quickly. And so once learned, I thought the navigation is as fast as you would expect, like a mouse-driven, icon-driven game to be with a joystick. It's not mouse-driven. Obviously, on the Amiga and things with the mouse, this is going to be easier to sort of navigate. But you've got a joystick, and so it comes with all the downsides of that. But this does quite a decent job. The icon, the pointer moves quite quickly. It's not so bad. There's also a message window just above where your icons are, and in here you get warnings of nearby craft, mines, you get confirmations of your orders carried out, and anything that you're doing. Should you die, and you will, you get like a front page of a newspaper describing how you died and some geopolitical consequences of this. It's usually the Russians, and then it says continued on page 3, so like that. So when this first boots up, it didn't seem enticing to me, I have to say. I was like, oh, okay, because it got quite a good rescore. It got 80-odd%. What was it? 81% this. So the icons are a bit chunky and bitty. The visuals are a bit, they're nothing to write home about. However, I gave this a few goes. I had a look through the manual, so we'll link to that. So go have a look at the manual, and quite soon. And so the manual is for the Amiga version, but it still does describe the C64 version, so you can understand what's going on. It's just the Amiga icons in there, but you can make out what they are. It actually became second nature, flicking from options to options and trying to steer the craft where it needs to go. There's some really nice touches to this, like being able to see the lay of the underwater seabed in the sonar option, and the visual and numerical representation of speed and depth and heading, so you don't have to, you can just see it. But if you, depending on which one you might like, there's some thought been put into this, how it all fits together, and this is far better than that boring loadathon that was Sub Battle Simulator, I thought. It's probably that this just concerns itself with one mission. That probably helps. But what at first seems an off-putting and maybe a little garish, the colours is bright blue, there's a lot going on here. I found it soon turned into a pretty captivating game that I thought does the book some justice. I like the book and the film, so I thought this was actually all right. Like we saw way back with the Fourth Protocol, these kinds of sort of literary conversions, they can work as long as there's some consideration on how to translate them from one medium to another. Here, I thought we have a solid strategy game that belies its rather dull initial visuals, and given a bit of time and space, this could easily suck you in as you try and guide the Red October through the very troubled waters of the North Atlantic. I enjoyed this way more than I thought I did. Thought I was going to, sorry. Way more than I thought, because I thought, oh, this looks like another one of them. But once I got clicking and got doing stuff, and some of the nice stuff, like you can see the contour of the ocean, and you sort of couple that with how deep you want to go and trying to avoid mines and getting into shoot and stuff. I really enjoyed my time with this. I didn't finish it. I didn't get across. I always got killed. But there's not in this. There's a weird restart option though, in that way, in fact you have to load in when it ends. You go to this screen and it's quite basic, and it just asks you to load something in, and you have to choose the first one, HFR1 or something. So HFR1, you load that in and it restarts, and then it allows you to go back to the start of the game. It feels to me like the fact that this game just starts, either the memory's full because it's all in a single load, and they don't have any way of sort of resetting everything back to basic, just reloading it or something. So you have to reload the game in, and I can only imagine that's it. But aside from that, on disc and on emulator, it doesn't take too long to do that. I enjoyed this. I thought this was all right. It was, I don't normally dig these kind of games, but this one, maybe because I had a bit of, knowledge of the book and stuff. And yeah, there was enough atmosphere here to draw me in. Surprisingly, I enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, principally the same, really. My initial thought was that it was more unplayable submarine guff. I had a feeling some of the production was missing. I think that might be because it's cracked. So I think there probably is some loady stuff that happens, but no, you're straight into it anyway. There's no arguing that. I mean, you're in the submarine, go. Yes. And it is a little bit nicer way to control it. So you're not overwhelmed with a billion options. It's got a nice story. So it's less simulator, more story. And I think that helps. Like you say, it's better to have that, I think. So I never, I found it once I'd gone through the manual and sort of found my way through things a little bit. I gradually got used to it. I think I needed to give this a lot more time than I had to give it. But what I liked and what I played, I never got. I must have the Duff version of that submarine because I'd just about sort of head off and then it'd be beep, 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 but then that was it. I heard a shh sound and that was it, sunk. It's like, oh, damn it. So I just didn't seem to be able to get very far, but that's part and parcel of playing something like this. The graphics look pretty good, I thought, in the way that they are. Maybe a little bit basic, but I don't know what you can really do. What they did within this is the kind of thing you'd expect to be in it, I guess, and it kind of worked. There was quite a bit of loading again on this. It wasn't as bad as the other one, though. It wasn't bad. It seems to be that they're obsessed with making someone's got to make the submarine simulator, haven't they, before Silent Service comes along. So
yeah, maybe
this is another one, quite pricey, really. But I think if you were like if you're a fan of the novel, you're going to dig this because it does work quite well with that hand in hand. It's quite a nice companion to that. And I think
exactly.
You'd be able to experience, before the film comes out, you'd be able to sort of go for a bit more of an interactive experience with it. Not a bad idea, really. Some of the look and feel of it, the way the little screens worked, reminded me a little bit Command and Conquer Red Alert in a weird way. Not the main game, actually the in-between bits. Just some of the bits like that. So I quite liked it. It's not the worst submarine game we've seen, because obviously that sub-battle simulator was out there, but this one does benefit from keeping it about something and having a simple, obviously not simple to do, but a straightforward goal, and having a really good book alongside of it to really help it. It had all of that. So the parameters of this were set quite nicely, and it just stayed with them. And that's quite important. Didn't deviate, try to do something stupid. Didn't bring in any science fiction. It just stayed with it. And that's exactly, that's to its benefit. It didn't need it. If they'd have tried to fill this with lots of canny, ridiculous controls, it would have ruined what is a game about trying to get from point A to point B as silently and sneakily as possible. So
yeah,
good.
Because you literally you're playing the commander, aren't you? You're playing the commander of the sub, and you're giving your orders. Do this. That's what I quite like when you go, all right, dropping down to 30 meters, 30 meters reached. You get the messages like you would get on a submarine, and there's that notion of being the commander at the heart of everything. But everything's there quickly and easy that you can access stuff.
Good.
Yeah. Good. Enjoyed that more than I thought I would.
Yeah, same.
Especially when
I wasn't sure and of course I got initially confused because I was thinking it was a different game, but then I realised, of course, this predates the film, but doesn't predate the book. And interesting that we get another version of this when the film comes out. But of course, that's what happens, isn't it? So
it is. Yeah, we'll see how that turns out. There we go. A surprisingly nice start. Let's move on to our next one. Hopefully, that'll be just as good. Graham, take us for a test drive.
Test drive from Accolade. Coded by Don Matrick, Mike Benner. It made me laugh that he's having a Benner. Kevin Pickle, everyone. Pickle Kev. Pickle
peas.
It's Pickle Kev. Bruce Dawson, for those that have watched Rick and Morty. Pickle Kev, everyone. He's a pickle. Bruce Dawson, Amory Wong, Brad Gower, and Rick Fryson. Graphics are by John Buchler and Tony Lee, who I thought was a Triple X hypnotist, but could be wrong. And musician is Patrick Payne.
You say Triple X?
Yeah, Triple X hypnotist, yeah.
What does that mean?
It's rude.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, rude. So, Test Drive is obviously a racing driving simulation of a sort. It's based on kind of illegal street racing as opposed to sort of track racing. And the goal is obviously to get through the 5 stages as quick as possible. It's almost outrunish, one might say. And it's sort of...
A little bit, yes, one might say that. Yes.
So obviously you've got to choose a car to do this before you go out in your... It's not really test driving, is it? You're not test driving a car. I suppose you're test driving these fast cars. You can choose from the Lotus Esprit, the Lamborghini Countach, the Porsche 911, the Ferrari Testarossa, and the Chevrolet Corvette. All of these are, at the time, very famous supercars in their own little way.
Yeah, very famous.
So they all have a nice look and feel. They're all represented quite nicely in terms of the way they're drawn. They've got a whole bunch of statistics, and apparently in the game have their own independent driving characteristics. I think really what that means is that they have a different gear knob and a different engine squeak.
I don't...
Because I'm not sure they really are
yeah.
that different to control, really. I mean, they look kind of different, maybe if you squint. I don't know. The one thing they all do have in common, of course, is that they're all manual, even though most of these actually better as automatics in the real world, but there you go. So obviously the idea of this, you've got to sort of travel along the road and try and get to the points. It's a bit outrunny in that way. You don't have checkpoints in this as such, but you've just got to try and get through, avoiding things like speed tickets, because this is all a great big race against time, really. You've got little radar detectors. It's the first time we've seen a radar detector in a game like this, I think.
No, I think didn't Great American Cross Country Road Race have one?
I don't remember. But this is kind of almost leaning on a bit of that as well, actually, if that's the case.
I think you can get stopped by police in that.
But so you've got to keep your speed under control, obviously, because if you want to go fast, and you will want to go fast, in fact, you'll want to continually accelerate in this game, because if you don't accelerate, the noise of the engine will drive you insane. Because while it's going up in terms of its speed, so when it's accelerating, the tone of the engine is, which is okay. If you stop accelerating, it goes, that's too much. Then you think, okay, I'll slow down a bit. Okay, faster. Oh, no, I've got to just keep accelerating all the time. So that's a bit of an annoying thing, that. So obviously, if you do get pulled over by the police, because there are police cars and obviously other vehicles to avoid. I'll come up at what they are in a moment, but you'll go past a police car driving at speed. Obviously, the cars don't lend themselves to going slowly. So you're going to be going faster, and they will then race behind you and flash the lights and all of that kind of thing. And obviously, you've got to pull over really, and they'll give you a ticket and all that kind of thing. All fun and games. There's also potholes in the road. And there's really sharp bends. The oncoming traffic, I'm using the term traffic loosely because there is things on the road, we'll grant you that, and we're going back to that Duplo world again, where they're just giant blocks of pixel coming towards you. So pixel lorries a la Blockatrons come flying towards you in jump speed. So, they're 80 miles away, 40 miles away, 20 miles, they're on you. Oh no, terrible. It's not great, that. And you'll crash a lot, because if you can't really always avoid them.
The crashing.
I'll come back to the crashing and then that bit in a moment. So you steer this. So the view of your vehicle is that you've got, you're inside the drive from the driver's seat, so you can see the top of the steering wheel. The bottom, just as the top of the steering wheel, but at the bottom of the screen. At the top, you've also got the rear view mirror, which does actually show your rear view. Interesting. And you've got your little detector on there. You've got your speedometer on there. And then obviously when you go to change, you up and down, accelerate, decelerate, left, right, is control the direction of the car. And obviously fire button is change gear. And I think you press fire button, do you move the stick? I can't remember if you move the stick or you just press fire and it goes up, and I can't remember how you go down though. I think it's up and fire, isn't it?
It's up and fire, down and fire.
Yeah. So that's how you change the gears, and the little gear thing appears, and it's that's the gear knob from a Ferrari, that is. That'll impress you maybe 2-3 times max.
Was it?
Apparently,
okay.
Well, not only in the Ferrari. So you start the game off, obviously. Now the game has quite a nice little intro sequence as well, and you see the car sort of rolls up and he rolls the window down. He does a kind of a silly face and then drives off, and I think there's speech in it, as I recall.
Yeah. Takes a while, though, doesn't it?
What does it say, the speech? It had this really weird whistle going the way through it. So it's like...
To be fair, I honestly can't remember. I was
welcome to something like that. I can't remember what the speech was. I'll look it up. But so you essentially are driving around from this kind of POV almost of, I suppose it's first person type view, really. You can't change that view from any other view, so it's that view or nothing. And your steering wheel is controlled by the joystick, but there's a dot which represents how far you've moved the steering wheel to the left or the right.
Yeah.
Because that's important when you're going around the sort of bends, because obviously when you're going really fast, it's going to start skidding. You won't notice really because it looks identical, other than you hear this kind of sound. So you have to sort of go with that. And this obviously limitations of the format anyway. If you crash, your front window breaks, cracks, and then obviously you lose life and time.
Yeah.
And then you've got to accelerate again, obviously, from the start, and you've got to go through the stages of pain of the sound. And after each of the stages, it's time to either measure your heartbeat or stretch your legs. Your gas tank is being filled while you're racing. Your average speeds and reward points are shown. So there are sort of stages for this as well. First stage is quite short and easy. That's from the blurb for this, but I'm not agreeing with that because it felt fairly endless. I don't want to get to the end of it, I suppose. And then the next stages become more difficult. And if by more difficult, they mean stupid bends that are ridiculous to get round. Loads of radar activity all the time. time and in possibly hard traffic to avoid, because avoiding the traffic, one of the big problems in this game. Well, one of the many problems. So the opening sequence, as I said, kind of memorable. I do have fond memories of loading this. I remember getting it. I remember getting the cracked version of this and oohing and ahhing a little bit because it was quite different in the way it presented itself. It had a lot of accolade, have a nice polish. So when it rolled up, and then when you see the car graphics, they look really nice. When you see all the stats on this big stat graphic, they're really quite nicely drawn. When you choose your car, the window rolls down and the guy does a little face and it drives off. Nice little touches, and then it loads in the window for the game. So there's no arguing, I suppose, really with this, with the innovation, some of the innovations that are in it. The 3D-ish kind of first-person nature of the game is kind of interesting because it's not vectors. I'm not sure what you'd call the 3D, really. I guess it's just crumble browno vision. You always seem to be on the side of a cliff. I don't know what you call it, really, but I suppose it's all right. It sort of works a bit. The steering wheel at the bottom of the screen is quite nice. The gear stick pop-up, those are little nice features. They're different. We've not had one that's done that before, like that, that's had that view, that's had it. I mean, Revs was the closest thing I could think of.
Yeah, Revs did and also had the line on the steering wheel as well, so it did the analog steering. For
this kind of street racer, posh car, fast cars. First time someone's attempted that. The rear view mirror was a nice trick as well, so you could see the police car. The blocky graphics of the oncoming traffic are horrible, really horrible. They're the worst thing in it by miles. This makes the graphics in Outrun look positively high res.
If you read my review, you just nicked my words.
These blocky monstrosities appear. And annoyingly, even though if you're looking out the window of your car when you're driving and you go round a lorry, the lorry doesn't still hit you when you're going around because it's in, it doesn't work that way. But in this, even if the lorry's all the way over to the right, somehow it always stays in your window. And if it's in your window, you're going to hit it. I hit the lorries more often than anything else. I could more or less avoid some of the cars that come towards you. And it's because they've got that awful logic in this when things don't come at you smoothly, so you've got time to avoid. They come at you in like 3 stages, like far away, middle ground, there. And because of that, you've got that potentially got 3 steps to avoid them. Well, this thing doesn't respond like that. Not even at speed. There's no sense of speed really in any of this, I'll be honest. It doesn't capture speed or anything like that. So it doesn't feel like you're tearing around these tracks trying to do that in a way that a good version of this would. Doesn't have that. So you're menaced really by giant blocky monstrosities of the kind that I'm not even sure took any effort to draw. It's lorry shaped. I think that's the best thing to say. But kids draw lorries better than that. Toddlers. So some of the innovations are nice, but it's let down by a lot of the clumsy implementation, which is really mad. All the detail of those graphics at the start, they've gone to all the effort of all that interior cockpit for the car and the gear stick and all of that to then throw crazy blocky crap at you on the road. Why? Why did they do that? It would have been better not to have it. I mean, generally speaking, on some of the American roads, I've driven on them. You don't see any traffic for like 2 hours. There's nobody on them. And if you do it, it's bumper to bumper or it's empty and devoid. Traveling from Los Angeles through to San Francisco, there's just very little traffic on the road between there. Certainly between there and Las Vegas. I went 3 hours, I think, in that journey. It was 1 car. Bear in mind that the lanes of the motorway, by the way, that you're on are 7 lanes wide. So the chance of hitting a lorry would be astronomical anyway. And even if you're going down the Pacific Coast Highway on the cliffside stuff, it doesn't matter. What matters is that this is a juddery, jerky, slow version of a race game with some great ideas, some nice presentation and packaging around the edges, but it's all trying to hide what is essentially a pretty crappy racer or a pretty crappy driving game. I like the ideas that are in it more than I like the implementation, obviously. I remember trying to really get into this and really wanting to like it back in the day, and it just beat me every time with its progressive, annoying, waspy sound engines and no real sense of being actually in the car that you were meant to be in. I had a real penchant. I love the Porsche 911 car. I think it's one of my favourite car designs of all time, albeit that it's an elongated Beetle. But I love it. And so this was a letdown again because I felt like I wanted to get in that car and drive it around, and it wasn't really that at all. So it led to a massive series of games, though. I mean, there's 22 games from 1987 in the Test Drive series across multiple platforms, all the way up to modern ones. I played the Amiga version of this a lot more than the C64 one in the end. So my memories of it are actually on the Amiga, which was obviously better than this. But the C64 is struggling here. There's some nice outward presentation, as I say. The details on that bit are good. When you get to the final game, well, oncoming traffic, this giant Lego crap. Vehicle collision is off. Can't really avoid things. The noise of the engine will drive you mad. The joystick controlling dot doesn't really work, really. Sound of the engine, again, like I say, bad. It's just there's too many things that bolt together to make this into an unpleasant experience. Whether you're trying to be ahead of the game or not, whether you're trying to it's just not, this again proves really that the Commodore 64 can get away with some of the show and tell, but not the game design, not when it's like this. I suppose some of these innovations have to begin somewhere, but not very good, this. Crappy review ready from Zapped, I agree with them. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, almost word for word. It's an interesting attempt to do something different and a little more in-depth in the driving genre. And like you said, there are some things to commend here. I did quite like the control system, the gear implementation. You're mostly pushing up to speed up, and then a quick tap on the fire button moves it up again. And the way it moves, the little graphic pop-up, nice, like that. Same if you're holding down. The steering is quite interesting. It's, like we said, it's similar to Revs. Big steering wheel, and you move a dot around it to indicate how much you are turning, sort of thing, which allows for greater analog options than just a digital input. So that's nice.
Clever.
It doesn't move fast enough, really, if you want to go from left to right. So you can't swing that joystick, swing the wheel around, which is a bit of pain. Yeah, obviously there's been some thought along these areas, and the visuals, like you said, in the intro section of the cars, you choose them. It's also good. Everything else is rubbish. The update is slow, so there's little sense of speed here. The oncoming cars are so blocky they'd make Outrun blush. In fact, I thought actually one of them looked like Bertie Bassett. I think the cop car reminded me, it looked like a Bertie Bassett. Yeah. It literally looked like a Bertie Bassett. I was like, that's Bertie Bassett. I'm being arrested by Bertie Bassett. I don't like this. The mountain is just a boring lump of brown, because that's the whole point of the game, isn't it? You've got to get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I commend them for what they've tried to do here, but it just doesn't come off. All the cars feel really similar to drive. In fact, pretty much exactly the same. At no point did I feel I was in a Porsche or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or whatever. I just didn't. More a whiny, boring lump that was menaced by blocky Tonka cars.
Tonka car is right.
Yeah, I'll give them kudos for effort, but take it all away for implementation. It's just not very good. It's just ugly and whiny. And also, as well, time and time again, I would crash. So you get the smash window, and then you go back on, and then if you don't put it in gear and you just rev the engine,
blows it up.
Your window shatters again.
Yep.
And you crash again. It's like, why have I crashed? I'm just revving the engine.
Yeah, you over-revved. When I
sat out in my car sort of thing, and if I rev the engine just for the sheer hell of it, sometimes my windscreen don't go explode.
Yes, it probably wouldn't, but if you stuck it, you pedal foot to the floor and just left it there for 5 minutes, it would.
Yeah, but this was about 2 or 3 seconds. You have to stick it in gear quickly.
Yeah, you do.
So it's just a bit ridiculous, really. So things like that. I mean, but the thing is, as well, is it's a game. So don't do that. Just say, let me rev. I want to rev. Yeah. Just until I shove it up in a gear.
Stupid.
So who cares? But just to punish that, I didn't like this at all. And it is amazing that it has gone on, that this is the start of the Test Drive series. I mean, there's supposedly, I think they're redoing Test Drive Unlimited.
Yeah.
Which was
number 22,
the open world Hawaii one.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed on the Xbox 360, I think that was. That was really good. But yeah, it's to be interesting to see this. But yeah, there was Test Drive Porsche, wasn't there? And loads of loads of them.
I think 21 of them.
So yeah, amazing that it started here, but it started off badly. The racing was terrible. Those cars. Oh God, those cars coming at you. Especially when you've got one in front of you and then one just appeared on the other side. You're like, yeah, I'm done.
No.
I'm done, because it didn't brake fast enough.
Nope.
It's just stupid. Yeah, so no, Test Drive was not a good game. I didn't enjoy that at all.
No.
There you go. Let's move on. I'm sure we'll enjoy the next one. Because our next one, Graham, is Slaine. Or Slaine. It's Slaine to me as well. But according to Wikipedia, it's pronounced Slaine. SLAW-NYUH. I think it must be the Celtic pronunciation, Slaine.
Okay.
Maybe. So Slaine is a comic hero that was first published in British magazine 2000 AD. Like I said, I thought it was just Slaine. I've always called it Slaine. So for the purpose of this review, I'm going to say Slaine, because I'm going to get very annoyed. It'll sound like I'm just saying coleslaw, but I don't want to say slaw.
Just call it coleslaw.
So we're going to call it Slaine, and so but I'm appreciative that it's actually Slaine sort of thing. But it's just it would pain me to keep saying that, and I'll forget. So cut me some leeway. Anyway, it's another character from the page of 2000 AD, and it's given the computer runabout. We've had Judge Dredd, we've had Rogue Trooper, Nemesis, the Warlock. So this is in that kind of style. So we've got more of them. The comic concerned itself with the adventures in the Celtic themed land of the young. Celtic themed land of the young, and it featured the barbarian Slaine and his dwarf sidekick Uko. Ukko, UKKO. But as much as I know, I was never a massive Slaine fan, so I kind of tended to just look at the artwork and flick past it to get to the other stuff I enjoyed in the comics. So my knowledge of Slaine is slim. I know it's Celtic in tone and everything, but it was not one that really, it was strange really. I do kind of generally like this, but there's something about it that I never really took to. But there you go. So I've got little affinity for this. So I'll just, all I can do is judge this on the quality of the game itself. So the story in this tells of the death of the last Droon Lord who, with their dying breath, cursed the land and the village of Tortega. The only way to rid this curse is to find the Droon Lord's daughter, who is trapped in the Sky Tower, and get her to reveal the evil one's name, the evil Droon Lord's name. If you say this, and only she knows it, it will rid the land of the curse and allow you to win the game. So that's what you got to do. So you got to make your way through this game, find the daughter, get her to tell you the name, say it, and jobs are good. When the game loads up, you can kind of instantly see that this has probably originated on the Spectrum. It looks like why? Because it looks like a Spectrum game.
It looks a lot like one.
It's a high-res screen. So at the first part on the right is a picture of Slaine and Ukko. And it's got the credits at the top telling us it's created by M. Archer of Creative Reality. There's also a really good, and the only good thing about this game is a very good Dave Whitaker piece of music. The music in this is very good. It's nice and sort of well-themed. It's fantasy-ish. It's very good. I did like that piece of music. So well done, Mr. Whitaker. Under the credits, there's a single color drawing of our heroes with a text box asking us if we are sitting comfortably. On the left of the screen is where the horror of this game resides, and that is the menu system. You just have to answer yes or no to this question. Yes or no. There's a large box on the right of the screen, and in this there are two hands, one large and one small. So I'm guessing this is one for Slaine and one for Ukko.
Must be.
I think that's what it may be supposed to represent. So you move this about. See, it's like an icon-driven thing, so you got to click one. So you just got to click yes or no. You just got to choose your option. And it's here that the reflex control method rests. Reflex control method. What this amounts to is a constantly moving menu which sees you chasing the options with your hands. The words yes and no float about, many times racing off to the left and the right as you try and click on them. They appear on different lines. They fade out. And should you manage to click on one of them, finally, and it's a pain in the ass, the game begins. Text boxes appear on the right, telling us we are on a dirt track. It also tells us there is 5 villagers here, which grammatically angered me.
Thought it might.
If there is 5 villagers, just write there are some villagers, or 5 villages are here.
Yep.
There are 5 villages up here.
Yep.
Don't need to worry about it then. Okay. I remember there was an interview with Braybrook when he was talking about part of his diary, and that when he was doing Morpheus, and he was on about how he has to create a null character space because he hates things like that. Where it says village, there is you've got 1 lives left, things like that. So he creates a null space where you can just have 1 life, 1 life, whatever. Anyway, this is where the reflex system really comes into its crazy own. We've got options: examine, look, status, objects, action, hit Ukko for some reason, attack, and move. But all these are moving constantly, wiping off to the left or right, appearing 3 lines down, swapping out, swapping in, fading in, just move. It's nightmarish. If you manage to click on the right one, then a sub-menu appears in the same way, while the other options are still fading out, so you don't even know if the sub-menu options, you just click the right, who knows? It's just a nightmare. Nothing sits still. It's just an absolute nightmare to navigate this. If you attack the villagers, it brings up the options to swing, punch, there's others, but choosing the right one is more luck than anything else. Choosing to move gives you 4 directions, but there's nothing to indicate which way to go, and just when you think you're choosing southeast, it fades away to replace by north, and you're not heading the direction you wanted to at all. I managed to make it about 3 choices in before I turned this off. This could be the greatest adventure ever committed to the C64. This could be a work of creative genius, although with the text like there is 5 enemies, I highly doubt it. But it's all rendered futile and pointless by the single most anger-inducing and confounding menu system it's been my misfortune to encounter. At one point, how did no one just say, don't do that? It's stupid and clumsy and horrible to navigate. What are you doing? The players will hate it. You and this game. They will just hate it. What are you doing? Why? Why was this never said? Why did someone just go, Mr. Archer, bang, stop it?
We'll never know.
You don't need to move them. But it's my reflex system. I'll reflex system you. I do not want to fight a menu system.
No.
My game should not be fighting floating words when I'm supposed to be playing as a Celtic barbarian. If you have to hide your game behind something this atrocious, I can only assume that what is there is crap. Otherwise, why would you hide it? Why are most 2000 AD games so rubbish? How do you cock it all up so badly in so many different ways? Why did no one slap the program and make him go and sit in the corner and make him think about what a bad thing he'd done? Utterly incomprehensible. that this got to market like this, and nobody at no point said, "Don't do that. Don't. It's a waste of memory. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of waste of good input system." This is you messaged me and said it's going to really anger you, this system. I was like, okay, I've seen some bad menu systems, but I was not prepared for this. Stupid, crap, and awful. I hated it. I hated just the menu. And so I can't comment on the game because why would you? Why would anyone give this any time? One of the most annoying things I've ever come across. You?
I liked the style of the presentation because that was detailed and that kind of looked all right. That was it, though. Had they wrapped a sensible control system around that, it might have fared a bit better. But as it stands, the floaty selector word is stupid, and having to select every single waking thought is unexciting and frustrating when done like this anyway. I don't get the design choices people make, generally. I don't get it for this. Why have a text menu that's difficult to read anyway, which it is half the time, and then float and move it around so it's hard to select? That is just plain f***ing annoying. Good music from Dave Whittaker, like you said. So that makes things more possible, at least orally. And the graphics that I saw, again, like I said, well drawn in the high-res comic style. Some things looked quite nice in that way. Very Spectre-esque, but it did look all right. But really, you want people to enjoy playing your game, and the interface to do that is the key. If you get that wrong, well, everything's wrong. This is bad.
Yep.
This is bad.
Yep.
This felt like a throwback to a game from 1985-86. Possibly the worst control system I've ever seen on anything in my life. And I've had to navigate some Japanese control systems and Chinese control systems for LED lights, USB LED lights. And let me tell you, those remote controls, they're pretty weird. So no, this was crap. Just stupid. What a shame. I bet there's a really good game underneath all of that. No one's ever going to get past that floaty thing, though. Horrible. Yeah.
I sat here trying to play it when it first started. I was like, when it first started, I was like, hey,
I knew it would anger you as soon as I engaged with its floatiness. I'm like, I know someone who's going to hate this more than me, and I think it's possibly one of the worst things I've ever come across.
Yeah,
I mean, I've designed interfaces professionally for a living.
You don't move them.
No, you don't.
You make it easy to click.
Yeah, exactly. It's a usability nightmare.
It's a sensible motto.
Yeah.
Don't move your options away from the clicker.
There's a reason why most websites don't move their navigation around and change it.
Yeah,
it's really annoying.
Absolutely,
people don't like it.
So Slaine put me off coleslaw. Just annoying. Wish it hadn't.
Yes.
But there you go. Dreadful thing. Let's move along. We've got another fantasy style, medieval style game to get into as our final one. So let's just get into that. Graham, it's a sequel. Tell us all about what it was like going into Gauntlet 2.
Gauntlet 2. So this is copyright, obviously, Atari Games. The game programmer here is Stu Gregg. Graphics, Kevin Bulmer. Titles were programmed by Chris Shrigley. So there's some familiar names here to anyone that knows Gremlin Graphics who were responsible for this. Apparently there's lots of help was from Tony Porter. Sound effects from Bill Allen. I mean, come on. All right. Title music was Ben Daglish. And apparently in the game, it's a special thanks to Ed Logg. So this is Gauntlet. What have they done? So you get to select. So it's different to the first Gauntlet. This is the same old characters here. So Merlin, Questor, Thor, and Thyra are back. There's 100 more levels to explore in this, and again, it's following that kind of the Gauntlet mantra. So in this, it begins with the crappy title screen, which is a bit horrible, but it's Gauntlet-y, I suppose. Then it goes to the selector screen, the horrible selector screen. It's 2-player only again, this. So, maximum 2 players.
Yeah.
And then, so you choose your player out of the 4 I've mentioned, and then you can choose their colour, okay, for reasons of, I don't know, just for fun, I guess. And then, obviously, it's into the loading. The loading will begin. There's a lot of loading in this, as you can imagine. It's a Gauntlet game. There is a lot of loading. So this, like I said, it's got 100 more levels to explore. So the usual Gauntlet-y stuff here: find the keys, the treasure, the food, and the exits. Avoid the baddies of the different varieties and quantities. There's some new interesting things in this Gauntlet 2 as well. Some traps, force fields. Who gives a shit? This is worse than the first one. It's worse. It's way worse. The loading screen and opening gambit are the only bits that are actually passable, I think. It's not amazing, and the artwork is a little bit crap, but it's passable. And obviously then selecting your player part, okay. When you get into that, after that awful bunch of loading, you're presented with the Gauntlet play window, and that's when you go, ugh. As soon as you move that thing, the graphics are slightly bigger and more squat. So they're kind of fatter. They've eaten a lot. That's what I think of them. They've eaten a lot. They've had a good meal between Gauntlet and Gauntlet. Those deeper dungeons clearly had some high calorie food in there.
Well, yeah.
So they move a lot slower, which is a massive problem in a game that's dependent on its fast scrolling and it's scuttling about, picking up stuff and avoiding the endless attacking waves of enemies and opening the doors and the panic that comes from being bombarded by thousands and thousands of ghosts. You're never going to experience any of those things in this, ever. Not really. They seem to have sacrificed some of the FPS as well for this. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know quite how this has gone wrong in this way. Something went badly wrong here. So it's certainly noticeably slower than the original C64 version, which is a problem. Everything about this game has got a million times worse. So everything in this game is worse than the first one, and they've taken all the things that they shouldn't have taken and put them into this. So they've made it slower. The sprites are worse and fatter. They don't control as well. Shooting things doesn't have any kind of satisfaction. Everything jerks around, including all of the enemies just jerking and juddering about. Yes, there's plenty of them on the screen, but they're all slow. The scrolling's jerky. Wasn't even jerky in the first one.
Don't think so.
I don't know it wasn't. I don't know what happened. It's noticeably crapper. Underneath, I suppose, there's the same fundamental game, as it were, but the format for this is now getting a bit old. And in an episode where we've got Ikari Warriors as a 2-player game with strafing modes and running and loads of sprites on the screen, how did this happen? How did this game become this? This is loading parts. Ikari Warriors was one load. This is loading loads of these things in over a long period of time. When it loads, it's rubbish and bland and empty and there's not much in it. I do not understand. This cannot be optimized in any way that means anything. I don't get why it was even released. I'm not sure anyone wanted a sequel to Gauntlet. Is there one in the arcade? I think there is a Gauntlet 2 in the arcade, isn't there? I think there's a second Gauntlet.
I don't know, actually.
But for all of the same reasons the first version was flat, are the same here, but flatter or fatter. Depends how you look at it. I mean, I get it. They've eaten so much, they've got fat, which means they're slower in the dungeon. All right, that may be the payoff. It's not exciting, though, and that's not, that's not nice. I didn't like it. I like Gauntlet. Gauntlet's always been quite a playable game. Even the C64 version with its limitations, which I wasn't wholly struck on, was certainly a better attempt at a Gauntlet game than this, which is weird because they've done Gauntlet variants themselves, which are better than this. Avengers better than this. I mean, yes, it had its problems, but it was faster on the screen. It was better. I don't get what went wrong here. And looking at the list of names that are involved in this, it seems to me like this is a design by committee, and I just don't think anyone really wanted to be responsible for it, so they've just kind of put it together as best they could and just chucked it out, knowing that there's enough Gauntlet suckers out there. We've got Gauntlet 1 and Gauntlet Deeper Dungeons that will go and buy this. Another 100 layers of crack. But considering we had the game in the last episode, which was a Gauntlet variant that had jerky scrolling, but at least it had the design and the elements right, and parts of it were right. Yes, it had the similar problems to this, but they tried better. It was a better construction of the Gauntlet game. How do you get this wrong when this is principally some of the people that designed the first one? It's awful, this. It's really bad. Now, Zapped gave it 81%, which baffled me a bit. I don't quite get why they thought it was worth 81% at full price. I can't get my head around it. I loaded this up and I saw a crap version. It looked like a dull version of a game that had already had the problems, and the problems that had been exacerbated, which made it feel really sluggish and unplayable and not very nice to go at. Horrible. And I can only imagine with 2 players, it's probably even worse. No thanks. Gauntlet poo.
Yeah, when it works, it works. It really does. Yeah, what the hell's happened to Gauntlet? I mean, the first one went perfect on the C64, but it ran fairly smoothly and it was fairly fast, I guess. This one is a plodding, jerky affair that offers some extra things, but is less fun to play than the first one by miles, which, we didn't particularly like the first one. So the graphics may be a little nicer, I guess, and some of the sprites. And, there's loads on screen. It's quite impressive to see so many things moving about, I guess. But it all comes at a heavy price. The dead exact a heavy toll, and that toll is speed. There is none. It feels leaden and lumpy to play.
It does.
We can have good Gauntlet variants on the machine. Druid and some degree Avenger, as you said, show that. They can be done well if they play to the machine's strengths, but this is not one of those. It's not dandy bad, but it's not that. But it's more in the realm of the one we played last week. It's like that Demon Stalkers, exactly like you said. It just, it's that. But that had, nice, well-designed levels and some thought behind it. Again, but there's, similar unpleasant scrolling and loading that takes forever. How do you do this jerky scrolling? When I started walking, as soon as I started moving, I was like, what is going on here? Don't know how bland grey floors and some walls take so long to load as well. There's not even any detail in the floor or anything. Nothing. Gauntlet arcades were never going to convert well to 64, and there's further proof of that. Glove slap to this. This was terrible. I don't know how it got 81%. I don't know. I did go and play the NTSC version, the US version, the one by Mindscape. So
yeah. It's
all very similar. It's different levels though, so different levels load in. And what I did was I put my machine to NTSC mode, so 60 hertz. It does actually run quite a chunk faster. There is a noticeable difference in playing it in 60 hertz to the 50 hertz version that the UK got. So I don't know, maybe Zapped got the NTSC version. I don't know, but there's something gone badly wrong here, and just I don't know. It's poor, isn't it? It's really poor. It's just really substandard. How did this get 81%? It just doesn't feel like Gauntlet, and it's just no fun. Nope. And also, I got stuck on a level. There was a level where I either shot the wrong thing, and I couldn't. There's a load of doors, and I just didn't. There was no key. I think it was only the third level.
Yeah, you have to just wait, don't you? And the keys and the doors open after a while.
Well, where's the fun in that?
There isn't any, but that Gauntlet does that originally as well.
Yeah, but you should have the key to be able to get through in the first place. There should be keys to open the bloody doors.
Yeah, well, this the problem they had with Avenger.
Yes, it is. Yes, but don't excuse it here.
Well, they haven't learned anything from those games clearly when they made this.
No, and Avenger was Gremlin as well, wasn't it?
It was
dreadful. Gauntlet poo, as you rightly say. There you go. Let's spend more time on that. It's a horrible sequel to a not particularly great original. There we go. Right, so that's it. We've managed to get through this level. There's been some technical hiccups all over the place, so God knows. But there you go. We managed to get through. We've had 3 decent games, which, in recent weeks, that's actually not a bad hit rate.
Yeah, it's not a bad tally.
Ikari Warriors we really liked. Sub-Battle Simulator was awful, terrible. Mini-Putt was a good fun crazy golf knockabout thing, so that was all right. World Tour Golf was a subpar leaderboard. Hunt for Red October, surprisingly enjoyable that we weren't expecting, so we quite like that. And then the last 3, Test Drive, just no. Slaine, no. The anger-inducing, I was twitching, my eye was twitching. When I had to step away, I had to take a big break before I went off to play Gauntlet 2. And then I tried Gauntlet 2 and I was like, I wish I hadn't bothered. I just wish I'd just come on and gone, it's crap. It's going to be crap in it. And you could have just listened to you go, it's crap. And I've been like, yeah, didn't have to waste my time. But we play them so you don't have to. There we go. That's this week. That is episode 82. I think it's the last week of March next week, isn't it?
Yes, it is, finally.
It is. Let me have a look to see what we have coming up next week. So next week, in the last week of March, I think we've got 9 games. 9 games next week, plus the films. Only a couple of films, though. So we've got Predator.
Okay.
BMX Kids.
Interesting.
And you can tell it's going to be radical because it's got a Z in Kids.
Oh, very good.
Brave Star.
Oh dear.
Which is another action figure one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Kids' toy. Jet Boys, which could be anything.
That sounds like a sort of thing your mum and her friends would go and see. Yeah.
I've seen Jet Boys, absolutely.
See the Jet Boys.
Absolutely. We're going to the After 10 show where it gets a little blue.
That's it.
We've got Code Hunter.
Okay.
It could be anything. Droid Dreams.
Oh, dear me.
Mac, MACH, so that better be fast. Rastan Saga.
Oh, dear.
And finally, finishing off the month on Apollo 18, which I presume is the one that inspired the cover. We've also got some crap verts. Couple of crap verts, chart, and things like that. And then we'll be obviously looking forward to what's going on for April. As we get into April, that's the long 12 episodes it's taken us to get through January, February, and March.
That's crazy.
101 games.
Jeez, not all of them good.
I don't believe there were 10 that were good.
No, terrible.
If I'm honest.
Oh dear.
Maybe there was.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear. The awards are going to be a nightmare if they carry on like this.
They really are. Lenny the Lion is not impressed with his weird white mouth. Anyway, that's it. So we've got that to look forward to next week. We round it all off. We've done our Patreon bit. That was at the beginning. So, go join that if you want to. I don't think I've got anything more to add. Have you got anything more you want to add, Graham?
No. There's been enough technical hitches in this particular recording. I think we just need to try and get what we can and I'll get it pieced together. And
get out of it. I don't envy you that job. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare to cut all this together. So if it sounds a bit disjointed at times, we've had internet cutouts and dropouts all over the shop. So we've tried our best to kit it all together. But if it does sound a bit disjointed at points, or people just go, and then I thought, rainbow. So we do apologise if that's what this is. But just do that. Just do that in random points.
I might just put random points, just put the red rainbow in. Yeah.
You might as well. So if it does sound like we do apologise, but hopefully it'll be all right. I'm sure Graham can work his magic. He's got magic fingers on those dials. He plays he's got a better UI to use than the one that was in Slaine. put it that way.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'd have to chase the options around. At least
Chase the options
not
game.
if I put my glasses on.
True. All right, there you go. So I think on that note, I hope you enjoyed this. I have been Adrian Mills.
And I've been Graham Raddings.
And you have been listening to Slaine. And we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Hasta lasagna. Don't get any Slaine. Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.